How are we doing, people? He's alright. Bear with me a wee second here. Right, how are we doing, people? He's alright. Before I get into the format of people joining and whatever, we'll need to see how it goes this evening in regards to that. But I'm just going to start this off by treating this like I'm speaking to people who are new to this. This is your first time encountering it. So how I would want to address it. First, I would have to say to you, I'm the same as many other people, and I just took for granted and believed that where I was being told that I lived was factual, and I just assumed it to be true. I found no other reason to even question it because nobody else was questioning it through the earlier stages of my life into adulthood. So just so that before I go any further, people understand that first and foremost, people like myself don't just walk through from an alternate dimension, shouting about these things. There's real justification, a real depth of contemplation and seeking within myself and the external world in order to find out what's true and what's not true. Now, again, this is always addressed to anybody who's new. You understand that human beings have potential to tell lies. You understand that human beings do tell lies, especially human beings who are in a position of power and authority. And the majority of them seek to control and maintain the positions they're in. So, before I would even start conversating with you, I need you to understand that that's exactly the position that I'm coming from. Secondly, I would need you to understand that, a discussion like this is not a personal thing. Nothing about, objective science has anything to do with somebody's personality, what their subjective preferences are. And if people don't understand what objective and subjective means, objective is things that exist in the external world that are independent of you, I, or anybody else. They exist by themselves as, objects, matter, whatever you want to call it. So there's a separation that has to be had and an understanding that we have to take into consideration about what's subjective and what's objective. So, if I can clear that up with you and you understand that, what you prefer, what you wish and believe and want for and yearn for and your emotions and your preferences, these are subjective. These are things that are, unique to you as the individual. But, objective, as I say, is things, the real world, what you call the real world, and the things that are in the real world. And that's the difference between subjective and objective. So when we're talking about the shape of the earth, it's a purely objective question. There is no subjectivity involved in it. Although, I'm a person, I have characteristics, but that's by the by. They're totally irrelevant to the subject matter, okay? So, if you understand these differences, so then we have to understand and agree upon, science, because, too many people think that science is this omnipotent entity that has the answers to everything, when it does not. Science as a term is for the individual. It simply means exploration, or to explore your objective reality that you're in. So how then would we, prove to each other what's objectively true and what's not? For me, there has to be a standard to that. Okay, now proving things to me to be objectively true is never going to happen through a TV screen. That's totally absurd. That's why we have ended up in this situation in the first place. How we prove things to be objectively true to each other is by practical demonstration. So if you're exploring your reality and you find things about your reality, and you want to display it or make a claim about what you have found, you're duty bound to display it, to demonstrate it in a practical fashion, using the substances, the elements that you're claiming that you understand and you know. So that has to be the criteria, that has to be the bar that we use. because that way, you know, eliminates any bullshit, any pseudoscience, any wishful thinking, you know, any corruption. Because as long as we stick to that standard, nobody's going to get away with telling us lies. So you have to understand these things. That is the criteria. That's what the real natural sciences are. So that takes me into the next thing. As I mentioned, you know, science is not an omnipotent being that belongs to some external source. It belongs to you. Now, again, the sciences that I apply, that I look to, are the natural sciences. This, you know, science has subdivisions: the natural sciences, the formal sciences, and the social sciences. So when we're looking at objectivity in the real world, we're looking for the natural sciences, which would be chemistry, biology, physics, as many people know and understand that I went through the education system. We'll get to that later on. That's what we require. That's what we need to, you know, use in order to prove what's objectively true. So again, anybody making any claims, they are duty bound to demonstrate these claims. No, absolutely no excuses are accepted, none whatsoever. If people are making claims and then they give you excuses, then there's an issue there. They are charlatans. They're trying to push pseudoscience. Okay, so, you know, I'm just talking, you know, through my process, because I was tired of myself. I was sick of lying to myself through previous years in my life, you know, listening to hearsay, taking external information, trying to incorporate it and figure it out as some sort of knowing and understanding about the world that I'm in. Now, I get fed up with that, and I had to, you know, cut through all the bullshit internally. I had to shut my ego down. I had to shut all my preconceived notions, my implanted beliefs and ideas that I had adopted and incorporated into myself. It was a real work to get rid of these things. But once you achieve that, you're now in a position to be totally intellectually honest, first and foremost with yourself and with everybody else that you're encountering. So, you know, for me, you know, I had to get through that process and, you know, learn these things. Now, once I learned these things, you know, I have a zero tolerance from any deviation from that. And justly so, because again, we're talking about objective world. We're talking about what's really true and what's not true, and how we can prove that to each other. And that happens through practical demonstration. So when I understood these things, the question came to me about this shape of the earth. So I then went through a process to try and establish what it is I actually know, what I think I know, and what I can actually prove for myself to be true. And I say that again, prove to yourself, science, the individual, you know, logical fallacies, things like appealing to consensus, like, oh, well, an institution knows and understands, and that's what they say. Everybody knows this, and people for hundreds of years have said this, blah, blah, blah. That in no way, shape or form from an individual perspective is a rational, reasonable, you know, avenue for you to pursue. It's illogical and it's dangerous, because you're going to end up believing in things, taking things for granted that are not true and real. So, you know, I don't accept appeals to authority, consensus, or any of that bollocks. These things are the tools of charlatans, sophists who want to confuse and push nonsense to people. So there was I'm doing this because, you know, I'm hoping I can get this right the way I want it to flow and maybe edit it. So just bear with me. So when I first asked this question, obviously the first thing that comes to your head, and I'm going to try and, you know, respond to the many questions that I know people are going to come with, because I was that person as well. You know, I had these preconceived, pre-programmed response and reactions to you know, questions like this, like how absurd that anybody could be even questioning the Earth's a globe. So first and foremost, you know, I've got this in my mind, oh, well, they've got images, they go to space. So then I start to look at these images, and very quickly I start to realise these images are not really, you know, proper photographs. There's something not quite right with them. I then go back to, you know, looking at rocket launches and supposed flights to space, and I see that the rockets are going up and angling off and blah, blah, blah. So anyway, to cut a long story short, you know, again, being intellectually honest with myself, cutting through, what can I find that's actually measurable and true? For one, images on a TV screen from any institution in no way, shape or form constitutes a scientific measurable proof of anything, okay? You don't suspend your knowing and your practical demonstrations of everyday reality for an image on a screen, which is exactly what's happened here with this whole globe. It was assumed the tools that were applied right up until the implementation of the globe, it was assumed that the Earth was a plane. Now, the tools of navigation and construction were formulated, understood, and applied from a plane, a level line. So, the globe came afterwards, and there has been a push to implement, not only imagery, but sophistry in regards to language, using things like mathematics. Again, going back to my point about the science and the subdivisions, mathematics is classed as a formal science, not a natural science, because it's something that doesn't depend upon empirical observations, practical demonstrations. It's a language, and it's a language that you can create axioms from and extrapolate in and create, fantastical mathematical equations and descriptors. But the issue there is, and why it's classed as a formal science, is that it does not always represent objective reality. What comes first and foremost is not the formal science, it's the natural sciences, how the substances actually behave in the real world. Then we ascribe a language to it. And just like any other language, it can be used to tell lies, okay? Or you can use it to describe facts. So we have a mix of both when it comes to the heliocentrism and the globe Earth. So I'm starting to lose my way. I'm just going to end up cutting through because, it's very difficult after this amount of time to have patience to sit and try and, formulate a laid out path of discussion with people. So, we know images are false, especially, and this is the important part, the images depict reality in a way that does not match practical, demonstrable observation. And that's exactly what we have with the globe. That's the confusing part for people and anybody new that's watching this. You're caught up through language and symbols, like a religion, that sways you to make you believe that you're somewhere that you're not, or to invest in something that's not true. So that's what the globe has done. The advent and the invention of technology like TV and filming, and the methods to film and produce movies was adapted and extrapolated on until the point where they were now pushing ideas where they're going to space and the Earth's a sphere. Then they started to incorporate the language to try and describe that, to try and back it up with language. But that in no way, shape or form is anything relevant to what I'm talking about in regards to the natural sciences. So, again, we don't discount reality in your everyday practical observations for an image. And again, I have to keep reminding you, be careful with yourself when you start appealing to consensus, authority, and reaching out to these avenues. You need to be honest with yourself to recognise that and cut yourself from doing it. Be a direct realist. Direct realism means that you take responsibility for yourself and you find out about the world you're living in from your own experience, purely and simply, and that is it, right? So, losing my way a wee bit. So when I started to look at the shape of the Earth, I was met with opposition who appeared to be trying to shut this down and ridicule anybody who's asking this question. Again, any scientific question about the objective world should not be ridiculed. It should be, welcomed with open arms and looked at, because objective science should never have anything to hide, nothing to protect. It's supposed to represent objective facts, so they should stand alone, regardless of anybody asking these questions. So when you ask these questions, I forget where I was going. I'll find it again in a moment. I'll come to the chat box in a minute, guys. I just want to get through this first wee bit. Aye, so when I started to look at this, I was met with this opposition and ridicule. Now, the continued types of questions you would be asked, because these agents, these kind of propaganda agents, I'm going to call them government establishment movements, because that's exactly what they are. Obviously, institutions who have a lie to uphold and to protect are going to have agents there to try and sustain it and to shut anybody down who's opposed to it and questioning it. So, you know, you get the ridicule. You'll also have questions thrown at you like, if the Earth's not a globe, how do you explain earthquakes? What are the sun, the moon, and the other luminaries up there? You know, gravity explains this, that, and the other. Gravity is this, gravity is that. What I have to point out to you is this, and again, going through the work myself, doing the internal work, you realise certain things. First and foremost, what I'm asking a question of is the shape of the Earth. So that's the ground that you're standing upon and the water within. Okay, that's the dimensions that's in question, right? So if you look at it as an analogy, you know, me and you as two individuals, we have a table in front of us, and we want to establish what the shape, the dimensions of the table are. So, you know, what the globe has done and what many of its agents try and push is distractions away from the very question of what this table and its dimensions actually are. So they start throwing in things like asking questions about the way things fall, that being gravity. And again, I have to point out to you, gravity is a descriptor of the way things fall, not why. The why is a mathematical extrapolation that has been formulated to suit the narrative of a globular Earth. It is not demonstrable in any way, shape, or form. Newtonian or Einsteinian theories of gravity are not demonstrable in any way, shape, or form. Newtonian mass attracting mass doesn't exist. Einsteinian mass causes the warping and bending of space-time, something that's immaterial, again, something that you cannot demonstrate. So the distractions to try and give validity to this globular Earth. Again, we have to look at the question, what's the dimensions of the table? Why are we invoking the question of how things fall and the way they fall and why do they fall? It's irrelevant. It has got absolutely nothing to do with establishing the dimensions of the table or the Earth. Remember, I'm using the table as an example, right? Same again with the luminaries, the sun, the moon, and the stars. For one, we have no access to these things. We don't know exactly where they are, what they're comprised of, and we're never going to. And again, they give you absolutely nothing in regards to the question of the dimensions of the table. Another distraction. But they use these distractions to continually try and pull people into a dichotomy of victory and loss and us against them, and you can't answer this question, so therefore I have a victory. You know, these are the actions of a religious cult, and that's exactly what the globe is. So you always have to remember, we're talking about the table. Anything that's distracting away from that, there's an issue with it. So you have to be wary of these people and understand that they're playing that game. They're either deliberately doing it or they're too stupid to understand what it is they're perpetuating, and you should remove your attention from it immediately. Concern yourself with the table and how you establish what the table is. Okay? What else did I mention there? In regards to their distractions, so we've touched on the luminaries, the way things fall, earthquakes, the predictability of the motions and what we see in the sky, again, taking away, distracting from the very question. So you have to simplify it. You're trying to establish the table, its dimensions, its possible dimensions, and the substances that are present on the table. Okay? So again, you'll get things like, oh, but this is how things behave in a zero-G environment. This is how things behave in a vacuum. Two things here again. We do not live in any of these conditions. Again, they have to be ignored. They are totally irrelevant. We do not live in a vacuum, and we do not live in a zero-G plane. We live here, on Earth, within Earth, whatever you like, and pressure, air pressure, and that's what's important. So again, when we're making claims, we have to observe and just demonstrate here in the natural environment. No, give it to the hands of some establishment who formulate certain conditions in order to show you these depictions to warp your perception of reality, because that's exactly what they're up to. Okay, back to it. The dimensions of the table is here we live. Not in any of these conditions. We don't live in the sky. We don't live in a vacuum. We don't live in a vomit comet. Irrelevant. So once you start to do that, you start to eradicate all the cloud, all the muck that's there deliberately to confuse you and to hold you back. Okay, so then you start getting right down to the nitty gritty. Okay, I'm focusing purely on this table and the things that I can find, within or upon the table and what they actually tell me about the possibilities of where I'm living and the possibilities of what other people are telling me I'm living. Okay, so when we get to that, we look from a natural perspective and we look out anywhere and we see a level, flat horizon, okay, which we are then told it only appears to be flat. So already we're getting into these excuses, right? It only appears to be flat. You're too small. Then we elevate. Oh, you're still not far enough. Okay, so it's called the horizon because it's horizontal. It's level. All right. I then look for measurable curvature, or where I should see curvature. And nobody seems to have an exacting science. There's so many things omitted and left out from any of these calculations that are not being taken into consideration. That being the human being and how we actually see and perceive the world that we're living in. I know I'm meandering, I'm waffling here, but I need to try and get through it to get to the end of it. It seemed good in my mind and I thought it was going to be straightforward, but it's the same shit. Again, I'm not a professional TV presenter. Can't help it. So we start to look at the world through our own eyes, our own perceptions, our own senses, removing the fluff, removing the illogical appeals to authority and consensus and security from external beings. Okay, purely one-on-one, we're looking at the table here. How do we establish the possibilities of the dimensions we're living in? Again, everywhere you look, it's flat. You're told, oh, it appears flat, but at some unspecified known area, it starts to bend and curve. Okay, how do we look then at the tools and the implements that we use, which come from a thing, Euclidean geometry, which was known and established supposedly a long time ago, and then non-Euclidean came at a later date, where they started to formulate. For me, I'm going to make this statement. They started to formulate this in order to fit a false narrative. So Euclidean geometry is what was known and what was used and applied. And anybody that doesn't understand that, it's starting from a level planar. Okay, so from that we started navigation. We learned how to construct. We learned how to identify things and our positions in relations to things. These things are fundamental facts, and it still applies to this very day. How an aircraft flies, how it's established, how the coordinates are laid out in regards to communications and navigations, how construction works, right? These things are there for everybody to go and see. This is what tells us about the place we're living in. Know what you see in a TV. That doesn't count. Again, especially when what is being depicted on a TV screen, goes against what we know and apply in everyday reality, right? So once you understand these things, and again, you're not here to believe in anything that I'm saying. You're here to go and do your own work and to find these things out for yourself. Then okay? Remove your attention from the players and the games that are going on, which I'll get to soon, and start your own path and your pursuit of knowing and understanding the world you're living in, right? So we know, these things and these tools that are applied. What else do we have? And for me and everybody that knows me, this is the number one thing. We have an abundant substance on this earth called water, right? Liquid, aqua, whatever you like. Now, it has a very definite behaviour here. One of these behaviours is that it does not support shear stress. It has no viscosity, no elasticity to have the ability to support itself. Okay, which means if I try and wrap a body of liquid around an object or a shape, it will never conform to it. Liquids have no form, they will only fill the shape of the container they are in. The surface is always horizontal, it's its lowest potential energetic state. Okay? The molecules are free and they collapse to a level line. 100% of the time, absolute fact, fundamental fact of your existence, my existence, and everybody else's existence. Right? Now, that is a simplistic substance that would tell you beyond any shadow of a doubt the impossibility of you living on the exterior of a sphere or any other shape. Okay, but what has happened is that people have suspended this direct understanding of basic reality because an image has been imposed onto them, and then a mathematical language to extrapolate upon this image to try and explain away natural phenomena of how liquids behave, to get you to warp your mind and contort your mind to a perception of believing that these things can behave in a manner that are contrary to your everyday knowing. Right? So that's what people like me, that's the angle that I come from. That's the stance that I'm coming from. Direct realism. No excuses. Okay? Now, you'll get excuses of when I ask for things like, you know, give me a practical example of a standing body of water conforming to the exterior of any shape, square, triangle, pyramid, cube, ball. And I'll get responses like, I need a planet out in the vacuum of space so that I can demonstrate. These are religious excuses. It's the very same, you know, principles, methods that are applied and used by people who are trying to protect a religious bias. No offence, this is not an attack on religious people. The majority of honest religious people understand that it's a faith, and I'm fine with that. As long as they're intellectually honest, they know what they're partaking in, that suits me. Just don't push it onto me. So the same applies when I go and ask these people something like, you know, okay, right, there's this person that claims their God, the flying spaghetti monster, is real and true. I will then ask this person to justify that belief, again, using objective science. Can you justify to me your belief in the flying spaghetti monster? And they will say things like, no, because the flying spaghetti monster exists out with time and space, and your human mind has no way to understand the enormity of the flying spaghetti monster. It's a parallel in what you see with this globe cult and its antics. So when you're asking for practicality, practical demonstrations of the substances that they're claiming and their behaviours, you get excuses. Okay? The same with the mass and attracting mass. Can't demonstrate it to you because Earth's mass gets in the road. Convenient excuses yet again. There is no excuses when it comes to objective science. This is the point. Anybody who starts making excuses, there's an issue with them, and you need to be very careful of that. Okay? So, simple. Show me the liquid behaving like this. Can't. What am I getting back? I'm getting an excuse. Ignored. You're talking shite. It doesn't matter if they've got an elaborate explanation. Again, these religions or any other charlatan establishment or whatever's being pushed is going to have a detailed explanation in textbooks and symbols in order to prop up their bullshit. But I'm not interested in religious books. I'm interested in a practical reality that I'm living in. And I have a practical, rational, reasoning mind that understands practicality. Doesn't matter how complex the substance is in the world. If you can practically demonstrate it, I will get it and I will understand it. When you can't practically demonstrate and all you give me is rhetorical theories, you know, about, you know, fantastical things, that doesn't sit with me, and it shouldn't sit with you. So I've probably wandered off and missed points that I really wanted to make, but this is what you're going to find with the globe. You're going to find that it is a religion based on an image, and surrounding this image you have high priests who represent it, that are equipped with a language a language of sophism, which is designed to confuse the unknowing, the unwitting. And that has been achieved because of the destruction of what we call the education system. And I'll get to that later on. So that's what it is. It's the same setup as any other religious institution, you know, where you have your religious icon and you have your priest representing it, you have your high priest, and you have your hierarchy that follows down to the common man. Okay, now I'm way beyond that. I'm way beyond the psychology of bending my knee down to consensus or down to authority, or, you know, appealing to, you know, being accepted by people in the masses and my social groups and my peers. I don't give a fuck about any of that. Right? I'm not an illogical person. I do not care about any of these things. The only thing I care about is what's objectively true and how we can go about finding out these things. So once you get to the point I'm at, you understand that the globe is impossible, right? So what is the next step? Now, again, you know, speaking to the new people, you're going to come again the same as me and many other people with these preconceived ideas of what flat earth entails and what it means, and how people were retarded who thought that they lived on a flat earth. Although the people who thought we were on a flat level plane constructed and designed much of the applied sciences that we have today, you know. So when you actually see that, you see what's been done. So once you get to that point, this is where it's important, because people are coming with preconceived ideas of what they think flat earth means. Now, you owe it to yourself to speak to individuals on a one-to-one level. And if you come across somebody who says, oh, I'm a flat earther, or I believe the earth's flat, you have a responsibility yourself to ask that individual what their definition of flat earth means. What do they actually mean by that? Okay, what I actually mean by it is that the earth's demonstrably level for two reasons, three reasons. Navigation and construction show me beyond any shadow of a doubt that it's level. I can look at a horizon everywhere I go and it's a flat level line. Liquids tell me beyond any shadow of a doubt that the surface is always horizontal from one point to the other, regardless if there's waves and swells. As it settles, it's going to be a level, parallel, everywhere. These are facts, and that's what I stick to. That tells me the possibilities of where I am. So, knowing these fundamental things tells me beyond any shadow of doubt Earth is level, and that what they're telling me is bullshit. So what's the next protocol? The next protocol for many people is to jump to a new concept, a new idea of what a flat earth means and what it entails and how it would look. No me. I'm you know, tired of that shit. Again, I'm coming back to a real, logical, realistic, human stance. Okay, I was born into this thing. You know, this culture that has an education system and an authority and a system that it operates through. And I was told these narratives about my life, who I was, where I came from, and where I was. Right? Now I understand the majority of what I've been told and been involved in through this cult that I was born into is utter bullshit. So that makes you very cynical, very sceptical of everything. So now I'm at the point of, well, I know what it's not. I know that it has to be level, but the full dimensions, how far it reaches, what's encompassing it, if there's a dome, whether we're encased in a sphere, whether we're inside a box or a triangle, a pyramid, I do not know any of these things. And I don't have a burden to know. And people who are demanding that we should know are at it, because it's absolutely impossible, and it's preposterous to expect that from a person who's been reasonable and honest about the situation that they are in. The next method, the next protocol for me is full exploration of what we call the objective world. So that means that we need numbers involved, we need personnel, and we need equipment. There has to be a process in order to achieve that. You're right. There has to be a process to achieve that. That's the only way that somebody like me, I can only speak from my individual perspective. That's the only way that I'm going to be satisfied, to know and understand that, what I'm finding is actually real. We don't leave this in the hands of an external authoritarian figure unless, any of these organisations have total transparency and openness. Always, I'm going to be very sceptical and very suspicious at anything that they have to offer me. And I encourage that in you and everybody else who pays attention to this. That's the stance you need to have. If you don't, and you don't learn that, and you don't stand firm in it, you're going to be opened up to all sorts of fucking bullshit. You're going to be distracted. You're going to be pulled from pillar to post into avenues that are absolutely, irrelevant and unnecessary to your situation and my situation. I consider this a very real, serious situation. I treat this as a real serious situation, but at the same time, I have a comical side to me where I can laugh at this, and it's a therapy to be able to just laugh at it and not take yourself too seriously, although it is a very serious situation. And anybody who's been on a quest through their life of asking questions of your existence, who you are, where you came from, this will be hugely relevant and hugely important to you, and you will treat it as something serious. Okay? So I know that's a bit of a more long-winded, explanation of who I am and what this platform represents, but sometimes I just feel as if it has to be reminded and said out so that people are clear and they understand, because I continually get the same shite coming at me from the Globe cult disciples and any other, illogical thinking person asking me these ridiculous questions, thinking that it somehow proves something, and it doesn't prove anything, right? The practical world is what proves what's real and what's not real. So I'll come to the messages and stuff in a wee minute. So again, just to summarise, the Globe's crap, based on a direct realist individual perspective and pursuit to understand the world that I'm living in. What I find tells me beyond any shadow of a doubt that the Earth is in no way, shape or form a globe. It's impossible, right? The Earth, as far as I can establish, is a level plane. The level doesn't mean flat like a fucking billiard table. There's high points and there's low points, but it's contained in some way or other for two reasons. It's filled with liquid and we have gaseous pressure. Okay? Anybody telling you that there's another medium beyond our environment, whether it be a vacuum, water, fucking a unicorn's inner cavities of its arse, I mean, I don't know. Whatever anybody's going to tell you about a different environment next to your environment, there has to be separation between the two. Again, we go back to practical reality. How do gases behave? How do you create a gas pressure in the first place? What's a gaseous environment, pressurized environment's relationship next to a vacuum when the separations, the walls of the containment are removed? These things tell you beyond any shadow of doubt, again, that what you're being told is bullshit. That very fact alone of, how gases behave, how you create pressure and its relationship to a vacuum should just tell you straight away that these institutions like NASA that are professing to go to this vacuum of space are full of bullshit. Not only are they depicting the Earth to be something that it's not, they're filling your head with pseudoscience about how gases behave and what the relationship is in regards to vacuums and stuff like that. It's just all crap. Again, you don't listen to me, you don't listen to these people. You go to your direct reality, your direct experience, and find out what it's telling you for yourself. If you're coming into this lazy, like you're needy and clingy and you want people to help you and answer your questions, you're fucked. You need to snap out of that. You need to take responsibility and start asking these fucking questions for yourself and pursue it yourself. Don't need anybody. It's fine if you're taking information and then you look at that information and you go and try and apply it or see if it holds up in the real world. That's fine. But don't sit waiting on gurus, saviors, fucking authorities, daddy figures, mummy figures, Santa Claus, the Tooth Fairy, God, Jesus. No invisible entity or external source is going to come and empower you. It's ridiculous, retarded that people think like that. Okay? So, hopefully, you know, I've done that justice. People understand exactly what the fuck's going on. So that should eradicate people coming with a straw man and asking questions about a straw man and a cartoon mapping model and all this fucking stuff. You're dealing with real people now, right? Real people who see through the propaganda, that see these manipulative tactics being incorporated and applied. They don't work here. There's many other people now who are aligned here that I know, that I've got to know, that represent themselves, that understand that. And it's great to see. That's where it has to go. Empowerment of the individual, not only to understand what objective science is and how they establish, you know, what goes on in the objective world, but also to understand the internal workings of their own mind. Right? There's two levels to it, the objective and the subjective. People need to understand both. I'm going to come to the chat box and see who's here. And then I'll get back to this. I've got a wee list here that I just want to get through because I want to bring up some of this, the players on both sides of the false dichotomy and how they play these games. You know, people call them shows, you know, agents, all this stuff. So I'll be getting to that. And again, touching on activism, because there's far too many people who have a skewed idea of what activism is, and I don't give a fuck about upsetting people. Again, you know, I deal with objective reality. I deal with protecting my pursuit of establishing and finding out what the dimensions of the world are. So I'm going to be outspoken on these things continually. Now, anybody who's professing to be an activist would realise that and stop returning it back to me like it's some sort of personal attack coming from personal emotional responses. It's nothing like that. I'm talking about things from an objective point of view and how things that I see that can be detrimental and unnecessary in regards to activism and how you actually affect people in a positive manner. So I don't give a fuck, and it's probably going to happen when you get a backlash of this bullshit about it being some sort of personal vendetta or ego or jealousy or any of these fucking things. So anybody who's professing that they are a real activist would adapt. They would formulate, they would continue to pursue their own understanding, to refine it, to correct themselves and incorporate it into their approach. If they're professing to be real activists, you would expect that to be the case. So we will see if these people are real activists or whether they're just playing some fucking game for some other agenda. Because up until now, the backlash that I've received when I talk about these things is jealousy, or I think I'm on a high horse dictating to people, and it couldn't be further from the truth. The only thing I'm trying to maintain is the chances of me finding out in my lifetime what the fuck this place actually is. Now, I said this from the very beginning. One of the aspects of me attaining that is to have people, the majority of people, as many people as I can get, to be fully empowered, to understand themselves and the objective world to as best as you can get it. So activism is not just about making a noise for the sake of making a noise and shouting at people and abusing people and making a fucking arse of yourself. It's a conscious, discerning, tactical approach that has to be understood and applied. Or you're just going to cause it to take a longer period of time. You're going to be causing damage and all sorts of fucking unnecessary bullshit. So I will be touching on that. Fuck anybody that's got a problem with it. I know the place that I'm coming from and the reasons why, regardless of what these fucking morons are going to try. So, before I get to any of that, how's it going, people? What I would really like is if there's any, you know, intellectually honest globe people out there, even if you're somebody that knows me in the social circles that lives nearby, I would really love a film discussion, calm, rational discussion about many of the things I've spoke about, just to show how the progression can happen in a real discussion and see what we can understand and what we can establish. So if you're anybody out there, please get in touch with me and let me know. I would be more than willing to take part in that. Don't be scared. This showmanship aspect that I display here on the platform, with the swearing and the chosen points of anger and contempt and frustration, they're exactly that. They're chosen and they're applied at specific times. Fair enough, there is times where I'm just frustrated and annoyed from a purely natural position, you know, but the majority of the time I'm incorporating these things as part of a showmanship type attribute, whatever the fuck. Okay, so all this bullshit about, oh, you swearing, you're aggressive, here on the platform where I express myself, right? Out in the real world, my interactions with real people show exactly how I behave. That's how I behave, okay? Right, anyway, before I go any further, so what you can discuss with me anytime you like. So Phil McGee doesn't believe. Daryl, were you on protection when you were in the jail? What the fuck are you talking about, Phil? Is this all you've got, son? See, again, anybody that's watching, this again is the tactics of these agents for this religious cult. They have fuck all. People like me are a real threat. They depend upon the imposed authority that you've known and understood your whole life, from your family unit, through your education system, college, workforce, blah, 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 government. What they're dealing with here is somebody who sees through all that shit, who will not be caged in regards to their thoughts and what they say, and standing up for themselves. They understand and know that I know my own mind and I know what I'm talking about, and I'm not going to accept any of that bullshit. They know they have absolutely no angle to come at in regards to anything objective, so they try and focus purely on an emotional, personal level. It's a very weak display, and they continue to display it. It's just not going to work, but they can knock themselves out trying. For me, I just find it comical. We'll get to this, you know, this aspect of persons and personalities when we start talking about the players, the shows, and all these people who are on both sides of the false fence, okay? Because they're all playing the same games, and I'll explain why when I get to it. Again, I don't have any loyalties to any of these people. My loyalties is to represent myself honestly and to represent objective facts. I'm not associated with any of these people that you see online. I have no loyalty to any of them. My loyalty is to the truth. End of story. And myself. That's it. So I don't give a fuck about ruffling feathers. And what I'm going to probably say, well, ruffle feathers, people will not like it. But tough, I don't give a fuck. Again, I'm not here to be your fucking pal, to fill you with hoobry and falsities and fantasies and comfort blankets. We've had enough of it. So we've got Tony Dixon, how you doing? Tommy, Pat Mustard, Racer FE. Not a single one of the relativity propositions has been proved. Of course not, it's just all fucking garbage. It's language. Davin Good, how you doing? David Holdsworth, how you doing? Sandman, how do? Vinnie Mac, Alex Kuhn, Joan Carlos, Scott Stevenson, Tam Reed, Tracy Storier, how you doing? Joanne Finley, how you doing? Witty Woo, Alfredo Barragan, Shane Corning, Lee Redpath, Midnight Gardener, FPV Angel, Ignorant Strength, Dom Yamaha, how you doing? The bike's absolutely fine, mate. Juan Carlos, I'm good, mate. Wake the Sheeple. Shit, where did that go? I'll just move it. Wake the Sheeple. The shows think by talking shit on you, it makes the fact that we don't live on a Jesuit CGI cartoon, but facts are facts, children. Exactly, I'll be getting to that very shortly. Paul Etchells, Russian Vids Archives, how you doing? P900 Coolpix, Stuart Lundy, Robert Matthews, Brandon Cook, how you doing? Steve HV, I'm brand new, bud, thanks, I hope you're well. Ben D. Waters, Dill Who's Asking, FPV Angel, Block 4 Block, Global Debate, Luke Marshall, stationary plane, how you doing? Charlie Allen, go vegan, Earth's a plane. Midnight Gardener, John Montague, West Coast Wisdom, how you doing? Nicholas, Chaos Verket, how you doing? Scott Richardson. Oh, I've jumped again, sorry about that. Keon Aruai. There are mountains, so impossible to be flat. This is the level of fucking stupidity. You know, I think there's a lot of people that just come in that think because they have this preconceived idea of flat in their mind, they think they're smart. Oh, there's mountains, it's not flat. Fuck off. Honestly, give me fucking peace. Show me anybody who's saying that it's a fucking billiard table. Eric Busheen, how you doing? Explore Flat Earth, Charlie Allen. Right, so anyway, people, I'll come back, and once I'm finished, I'll open up for phone in and text messages and whatever else. So the players, we're onto this. So again, you know, I'll just preface this a wee bit for anybody new. You know, there always has been, you know, psychological games played by government, military, whatever you like, manipulators, not only just on an external level like a military or a government. People have experienced manipulative behaviour on a personal level. I'm sure the majority of people have. So it's just a matter of you recognising that and understanding how it works, all right? There are players here for whatever reasons on both sides of the fence, and how I spot them is very, very simple. And you can take this as just my personal perspective and how I spot them, or you can take it as something objective that you can apply, right? So the reality of my situation is I understand that the education system was never there to empower me. Neither was the ideas of a family hierarchical unit. Neither was the hierarchy of government or any other external establishment. Okay? The whole focus of these things is to perpetuate themselves and sustain what they already have. Now, in order for that to happen, you have to have people in ignorance, especially when you're, you know, selling them lies and you need them in a weak position. So for me, you know, again, back to this, how do I recognise these players, okay? So I understand now how I had to empower myself. I understand now that that's a huge, important, crucial thing, is to empower an individual. That means eradicating things like appealing to authority, eradicating things like an insecurity of needing to feel part of a unit or a group, or to be, you know, brushing up alongside your idol or your guru, whatever security blanket you're looking for. So when I'm looking for people who are professing to walk a particular walk, I'm asking myself, are they offering people that? Or are they perpetuating a disempowered, weak mindset? Right? So anybody who is not actively diffusing, you know, cult, idolizing, following behaviors, you should be very suspicious of. People who are not pointing you in the direction of how to, you know, understand your own mind, you educate yourself properly and you empower yourself, you should be suspicious of them. Anybody who is not representing the objective facts, the eradicating the bullshit and getting right to the nitty-gritty of this whole question, you have to be suspicious of them. If they push concepts and ideas and maps and models and all this fucking stuff, you should be very suspicious of them. They're either stupid at a level where they've not fully understood themselves yet, or they're doing it deliberately. They're one and the same thing for me. So that then comes into this whole game of playing people against people. This is where it enters into the realms of the personality aspect. Remember, this question's about objectivity. Why are persons ever being brought into it? And I don't give a fuck who your guru is, whether they're making videos about other particular, YouTube content providers is totally irrelevant. I don't give a fuck who people are on a personal level. The only thing I'm interested in is what information are they trying to impart, and does that information hold up in the objective world? That's it. Keep it as simple as that. So as soon as you see hit piece videos about people and their personalities and their behaviours and their mannerisms, alarm bells should be ringing in you. That happens on both sides of this false fence, globe earthers and so-called flat earthers. They both partake in these games of propaganda, right? And these games of propaganda, so for instance, you've got one person making hit piece videos about these personalities. What are they actually doing? They're making these personalities relevant. They're making their personalities to be some sort of relevance. They're elevating them into the arena of notoriety by continually bringing their names up, by continually bringing focus on them. Now, the majority of some of these people I look and I go, they're totally irrelevant to me. What's the fucking point of that? That's the questions you have to ask. What's the point of this? And if you're making hit piece videos about persons, that tells me that you're not somebody who's aligned with the factual truth of trying to empower people. No, you're playing the game of guru and division and separation and trying to get people to side with you while, opposing this other group, and the people in that group side with their guru and oppose that group. And you're feeding into an illogical mindset. Why not make a fucking video saying, by the way, it's irrelevant who these people are and what their personalities are. Let's just look at the objective content, shall we? Let's sift through that and see if their walk matches their talk. That's not what you see. You never see that. You just see hit piece videos. And fair enough. In particular was one made 2 days ago. I found comedic aspects of it because I'm a guy that likes a bit of comedy. I like a ribbon, light-hearted banter, never hurt anybody. It builds strength, it builds character. So I see value in the comedy aspects of even ripping the piss out myself or other people ripping the piss for comedy purposes. No to detract away from an objective question. When it goes to somebody ripping the piss out of somebody else's character or mannerisms or behaviours to try and sway an opinion on an objective question, then you've got an issue. And that's what I see the problem is here. So you have to ask that. Why are these so-called gurus or leaders that they keep professing there and other people keep professing there, why are they even taking part in this type of behaviour? It's not important. It's irrelevant. The unity in this whole thing comes to people understanding individual empowerment and understanding that, when it comes to this question of objective, it's impersonal. So our subjective personal experiences and characteristics and preferences don't even come into the question. And anybody who's trying to drag those aspects into the question, suspicion has to be, raised, and you have to look at it. And for me, I don't even have to look at it. I just dismiss these people now. I see them clearly. So it's pretty much the same as, you see this in the political arena and how propaganda works and how they work to try and raise the profile of a certain character or another character, or this guy slept with a hooker, so therefore we need to remove him and put somebody else in, and they're keeping people in this mindset of, somewhere somebody has the ideal perfection of what a human being should be, and they're playing people on these aspects. When really none of that should be important. If you get people in positions who are supposed to be representing objectivity, what they get up to in their personal private lives and who they are as subjective individuals has got nothing to do with it. I'm only interested in if they fulfil the walk, the talk, and if they fulfil it by walking it. That's it. So you see it, the political propagandas, you see how they imply and use propaganda in your everyday experience. This is absolutely no different. So again, they're feeding into the same old mindset, the mindset of disempowerment, the mindset of groupthink, the mindset of groupthink that wants acceptance from its peers and its associates, all being conformed and controlled to ideals that are just not true. Nobody has the keys to what it means to be a subjective perfection being. Nobody does. So nobody has the right to even be going there. We don't know the full objective truth of our existence. So judging persons and their behaviours and their antics is totally irrelevant. It's a moot point. Eradicate it. Raise your suspicions about anybody who's partaking in any of that. So I'm just looking through my wee points here that I noted down that I wanted to get through. So I'll maybe just repeat on some of them. That, for me, is the whole game. You know, my chances are increased greatly if I have individuals who are empowered to stand on their own 2 feet and discern for themselves, eradicating belief structures and fallacious reasoning that they have internally. That is where the real root of this lies, you know, which again is what you can see with the education system. I'll maybe I'm not going to risk playing a wee video, but I'll put a wee video in the chat box, a wee link for people to have a wee look at. That kind of sums up what I'm going to say in regards to education and how it was achieved. So anybody that wants, I've posted that in the link in the chat box there. So this is what they have done. You know, they removed, you know, vital things from education. The education system as we know it, it's not designed to empower people. It's there in order to, you know, retard you and to have you as a cog in an idealistic conceptual machine that suits, you know, somebody's narrative. You know, real education's empowerment of an individual. You know, and if we incorporated these things again, we wouldn't have in the public arenas, we would never have propaganda and lies and manipulation. There would be no place for it because people would understand it and be able to see through it. So they had to remove these aspects so that people were retarded and would be blinded to these games that are being played out and how they're being affected by it. Right? Because it's all emotional, psychological, sophistry to keep you disempowered and to chase your tail, waiting for an external authority to sort it out, to tell you how to live your life, to tell you what's acceptable, what's not acceptable, what to believe in, what your existence is, where you came from, where it's all going. That's how they've done it. Because people have removed responsibility, or it's been implemented through generations and taught go to people like myself who were just born into this established, you know, dogma. This structure that's been imposed. But now people like me are waking up to it and want to eradicate it. Not so that then we can be in a dictator role. No, it's the opposite. We want to remove these hierarchical concepts. I want to remove them. I don't bow to any authority. And I don't expect anybody to bow to my authority. And I would never respect you if you did bow to me in any way, shape or form. That's the type of, you know, people, entities that we should be looking to, right? No people who want you subservient and disempowered. So, as I said, you've got these people on the supposed flat side making hit piece videos about supposed other flat earthers, while at the same time you've got globers making hit piece videos about supposed flat earthers. And it always seems to be the same characters. And you'll hear them referencing them as the big channels, what's the fucking names now? I can't even remember. But the big channels, the establishment, the big wigs, the whatevers, right? And they keep saying these narratives as well, as if they're trying to, influence people with that, to get them tied to the, oh, right, these are the big wigs, these are the establishment of the flat earth. That's fucking bullshit. There is no movement, there is no community. This is about individuals standing on their own 2 feet and representing themselves. So why you have to ask them, do they keep trying to lump us under these umbrellas as communities and associated with each other? And because you said hello to him or spoke to him, you're now associated and aligned and you're part of this umbrella. It's just utter fucking garbage. So, aye, that last wee bit on there, let me roll a smoke, just to make sure I have covered this. Because I'm sick and tired of seeing these games being played. It's just dragging people into fucking soap opera nonsense. And persons trying to play off persons and people getting caught up in that. You should be fucking ashamed of yourself if you're secretly enjoying it and watching it and trying to perpetuate it. You don't align with, anything real and useful as far as I'm concerned. You're part of the fucking problem. Still trying to remember that word. Top brass. There we go. The top brass. But that applies here as well. You'll hear people talking about me and referencing me in this kind of light. Again, my goal was never to set out to be popular and to have this amount of subscribers and this many views. None of that stuff has ever interested me, never will interest me. That's no, my stance. That's not what drives me. But these people try and pull you into it. They make propaganda videos and say these mantras to try and influence people. And nothing could be further from the truth. I'm always going to keep playing any of that fucking shit down. So I am no top brass. I am just the same as everybody else. We're all supposed to be on the level. So we have to recognise when people are getting above that level or thinking they're above the level. So, and again, I just want to get back to this for the new people. Where we get our sense of self and our ideas and our concepts about who we are as a species or entities. And it all comes from authority figures. It all comes from fables, stories, narratives. And the reality is that nobody knows. So religions, spiritual concepts and ideas, every single one of them is a substitute for knowing. And if you are invested in a substitute, whether it be a spiritual or religious practice, whether it's chasing a career, whether it's chasing, a sport interest, whatever it may be, if you connect that to a sense of self and belonging and who you are, it's a delusion. You're delusional. If you're involved in these things just for the thrill and the joy of them, fair enough. But if you then start to connect that to some sort of existential question and answer, then you're entering into the world of delusion. Okay? Nobody, again, has the keys to what it means to be a perfect human being. Nobody has the keys to the objective truth of our reality and our situation. So unless we know the truth of where we are, why we're here, anything that you're taking part in is delusional. It's mentally ill. You are a mentally ill patient. That's the relevance. That's why it's so important. You have to have the ability to put all that on hold, to suspend every bit of it until you know the objective truths of where you are and why the fuck you're here. And if you don't have the ability to suspend it and you still partake in it, at least have the honesty with yourself to admit that it's a preferred delusion. But that's all it'll ever be. So, recognise the players by their fruits. The questions about objective reality, impersonal, not subjective. Ask yourself the question, why do they continue to focus on persons? Why are they making them relevant? Why are they calling them top brass? Why are they calling them relevant? Why are they not negating all that and saying, by the way, all that's all fucking crap? What's important is that you're empowered. You understand your mind and you recognise these games that are being played. The self-empowerment following the process of understanding things like the trivium are a huge, huge weight to you getting to that point. If you can understand these things, it'll become a lot easier and a lot clearer for you as to what's going on in this world. So, who gives a fuck about their persons? I couldn't give a monkey's. If you've got a preference for a certain type of character or personality that offers, factual, objective information, fine. Use them for that. Take the information, verify it for yourself, or falsify it. Do not get caught in a trap of idolising and suspending your responsibility because you think you can sit back as long as you're aligned with Dell in the shed, because he'll figure it out. Or he'll lead the way. That's not going to happen. What's going to lead the way is a populace of fucking empowered individuals that don't take anybody's crap, that don't bend to hierarchy or authority in any way, shape or fucking form. Things would change like that. Lies would be no more. No propaganda, no manipulation. So on to the activism part of this and people's skewed perceptions and ideas of what activism actually is. So, I kind of get caught up at the beginning, but I soon caught myself on and realised what was happening. So activism, when it comes to this, everything that I've just said applies again to that. You have to be totally responsible. You have to be discerning. You have to be articulate. You have to have the ability to recognise yourself, know yourself internally, to be able to recognise it in others. And you have to be discerning and almost, sneaky enough to recognise individuals in at the level of it in order to plant the seeds in there to get it to grow and to get them to start questioning. So, what I was saying earlier on as well in regards to this argumentation applies here to the activism side of things. So I'll say it first and foremost, if you are an activist, no somebody that just wants to make videos and make a noise in the street like it's a big fucking joke, right? If you are a real activist, listen to what I'm actually saying to you. You know, understand these things, that the distractions that people bring about gravity, why things fall the way they fall, why earthquakes, what the sun, the moon, and the stars are, all this fucking nonsense it takes away from the table. Understand that and eradicate, recognise these distractions that people are going to bring and have the ability to just cut them off and show how irrelevant they are. So that you don't get caught up in the street or whatever, talking about fucking gravity and how do the moon and the sun and jumping from one to the other and fucking one to the other without you having the ability to fucking control the situation and how it's actually going down. Because if you don't, you're going to end up with people in bad moods and bad attitudes and arguments, and then they leave you and you get a wee annoyed. And that's no, you know, constructive, that's no progressive to real activism. So you need to understand these things, and again, you need to understand your mannerisms. And again, it becomes a real issue in a group dynamic with different characters that are at different levels of understanding, who are too full of ego and hubris to admit it and recognise it in themselves. Instead of that, they'll throw it back at me as being jealous and I'm egotistical, when I'm not. Again, if they're real activists, they would take heed. They would be willing to understand what it is that's being said and then incorporate it and apply it and formulate a new method and a new approach to show that they are serious about what they profess they are. But when you go into the street armed with a group of delinquents and fucking, you know, people at all different levels spewing utter garbage with bad attitudes and veins popping at their neck, meh, you're not going to get anywhere with people. You go into the street as a gang mentality, you're going to receive gang mentality. A hodgepodge of information and strands and bits. Where have we seen that before? Well, that's right, the education system. How did that work for us? You're being lied to, and I'm here to tell you the way of the world, and I'm going to help you. If I met that in the fucking high street, I'd be like, fuck off, you knob. Get to fuck. So again, it comes back to being responsible. If you really are willing to walk the talk, you would understand these things and incorporate it. But when I don't see that happening and I just see a repetition of the same old over and over again, I have to ask myself, what's the real incentive here? Because it really doesn't look as if it's to have the right impact. It seems to just give this illusion of activism and to get views and likes and loving comments on fucking YouTube. I've got an issue with that, and I'm never going to be silent about it. And it's not from a personal, you know, point of view of ego and jealousy or any of these fucking things, which I guarantee you it will be returned as that's what it is, when it's not. Again, I don't have any personal gripes with anybody that has ever been involved through the internet, because I don't know anybody. My personal interactions are with my real life family and associates. So, an activist is to be armed as an individual, to be ready to affect and engage at any given moment in time, with discernment and the ability to be sensitive and compassionate and understanding enough to be aware of you, your body language, where you're coming from, and to see them, their reactions, the subtleties in their body language, their behaviours, so that you can read the situation and, you know, put your effect in wherever you can get it. Okay, so what we witness is when people go out en masse into the street, when they're ill-equipped, right, is a destructive interaction with people. Fair enough, you might get your wee positives here and there, but as a whole, It's more destructive than progressive, as far as I'm concerned. That's always been my avenue, because that's what I really want, is to empower people to make this different so that I can increase my chances of finding out. So I'm committed and I'm serious about that. I don't just go out with an attitude of I'm an internet guru. I'm here to save the world. And how many subscribers and likes do I have now? Oh, look at that. That gives me a thrill. While at the same time playing the daddy role and loving everybody, and it's all love and oh, I will love and respect you as long as you don't question. Because our egos can't take questioning. Oh, our agenda may be unravelled if we allow questions. Fuck it, again, you're supposed to be representing objectivity. Why would you have to, edit out who's asking questions and who's allowed to ask questions and who's not? We're supposed to have transparency here. That's not what I'm seeing. I'm seeing selective behaviours, which makes me very fucking suspicious. And at the same time, I'm seeing retorts of personal attack when you bring up these objective points in regards to the walk and asking these questions that have never been addressed, that will never be answered, that will continue to focus on the man. Again, as I pointed out earlier, we're looking at the games of propaganda, manipulation. When I want to get active with people, I've got to think to myself, how can I be as indirect as I possibly can? We're dealing with human psychology here. So you have to incorporate that and you have to understand it. How can I be as least and direct as I can be, as least threatening as I can be? These should be your bars of pursuing this, No, just steamrolling in there, disregarding anything of these points that I'm making. So I'm always formulating, I'm always thinking, how do I get there without being confrontational, without flaring the ego up, without the defences coming up? How do I diffuse these things? How do I play on the human psyche in order to get this message in there, to plant the seed in an effective manner? That's what's relevant. That's what's important. And anybody who doesn't follow that line, I've got fucking deep suspicions of. And so should you. If you're a person out there that understands what I'm saying, you should be deeply suspicious of them. And don't be scared to air it. Don't be scared to be vocal. Again, if you find yourself, editing your own speech or your own thoughts, catch yourself on, give yourself a fucking shake. Don't ever be scared of that. If you're scared, you have to ask if it's you who's editing yourself or if you're being subtly influenced by some external pressure. Anytime I feel that, I look at it straight in the face and I fucking spit it until it get to fuck. This is what they try to impose on you, as I say, from childhood, the hierarchy of the family unit, right into school, to set you into this mindset of subservience and bowing to authority and the mannerisms of authority. And I recognise them. So, all I can hope is that people understand what it is I'm fucking saying. I know what I'm trying to say. So if I've no, it's the same old, it's just rinse and repeat. I have to keep repeating these things over and over and over. This is the game that's being played. They have this opposition front that just keeps pushing. So we need to keep pushing it back. Every time it comes as you point at it and you fucking push it back. So I will keep repeating it. I'm always going to be vocal. And again, I'm going to reiterate this. This does not come from an egotistical personality type of place. Never have I pursued those avenues. Go and look at the backlog. Don't make hit piece videos. I don't focus on personalities. I'm not interested in any of it. I have nothing. My ego is never going to get any satisfaction of standing up against the grain, of pursuing this with no financial gain, no gain of stature, no gain of popularity. None of that comes through this. It's a fucking joke for anybody to think that you do. This is now the 4th year for me. I'm still in the same housing scheme, the same financial situation, sitting in the same fucking shed. If that was really my incentive and my goals, I would have sought to tick those boxes. So I think I've rambled enough now, and I hope it's fucking clear. Right. Pragmatic, the spirit level, water level ain't getting debunked anytime. Sticking to that is enough. Exactly. That's the simplicity of this. That fundamental fact alone disproves, but people are confused because of the programming through generations and the bombardment of images through media and education. Just as West Coast Wisdom's highlighting here. Keon Arroy. So why is it shown on every TV screen, idolised and imaged in films, books and classrooms? Why are children never taught why it's a globe with the body of science proof? Exactly. Because it's a religious lie. And again, people forget this. The religious establishments have never relinquished that control, ever. They dominated, they hold it, and they still hold it. That's why the people who come out with all this bullshit came from religious institutions. Facts, self-evident facts don't have to be bombarded in a classroom. You don't have to bombard a classroom with the grass is green. You don't have to have symbols and text everywhere. The globe requires it because it's a religious cult. It has to always maintain it. It always has to cover its angles in case people start to question or maybe break out of it. So it bombards it at every possible turn, and it will oppose and ridicule anything that's contrary, which is why, again, you see that it's not coming from an honest stance, because if it was a fact, it would stand alone, and you would have no necessity through the education system or the media to ridicule alternative questions or concepts or whatever. No reason at all. And again, if it was objective science, it would be welcoming. No ridiculing. Oh, yes, of course, people are going to ask these questions. Let's just, have it transparent and open so that, people see it. There is no reason to be suspicious. Oh, thank you. A cup of tea and water. Thank you, wench. Thank you for serving the king in the shed. See what I mean? The ball bag in the shed was the response I got. Aye, that's the attitude. That's the attitude I respect. That's the attitude that makes me secure. Fuck you. I'm just going to put you in your place and point at you when you're getting above your station and think you're something better than you are. Why do we not want everybody to be like that? Insecure, needy controllers don't want that because they're no complete. They don't feel enough. They're no confident and strong in themselves. They need to weaken everybody else and drag everybody else into their disempowered fucking nonsense. Because they're ill. Hey, ball bag. Again, people, I'm passionate about that and what I'm saying. The most important thing for me is that empowerment of you, so that you eradicate the disempowered concepts that are in you, and you rise above that and come to the level, because you have people like me. Again, I'm secure in myself. I've got no reason to want to control anybody. I'm comfortable with me, and I'm comfortable with you being you, and that's all good and that's all fine. You stick to that. And then when it comes to things that are objective, we share that freely with each other. Aye, Joanne Finlay, ball bag and teabag. Aye, if she had balls, she would teabag me. Tommy Lee, 100% Dell, and it is that fucking simple. It really is. But these people are caught in these ideas. Everything needs to be complex. That's just what they've been sold. You know, they've been sold this nonsense, this sophistry. You know, the globe has to be complex and confusing just to, you know, put people off. Because, you know, people then think that they're not clever enough because it's so complex. Reality's simple. Psychology's simple. Oh, Veronica, how you doing? Nice to see you there. Oh, shit, jumping again. Charlie Allen, when you drain water out your sink, I bet that it spins, bends, swirls and falls down your drain. Get real. And what's that supposed to mean? Again, if you're a globe person, as I think Charlie may be here, they constantly try and misrepresent, because some people are scared. They will contort and look for lies just to get a bias to fit their belief structure. So you get people like Charlie that will talk about drains and what happens to liquid when you drain it, when you let it go down a drain. Again, what you have to ask yourself is a sink with a plug hole and a drain a representation of the claim, which is a globular potato rock with oceans bending around it? No, it's not. No, it's not. Again, Charlie, I'm going to have to point you to this fundamental, simple fact. Liquids don't have any form. They will only take the shape of the container. The surface will never be able to support shear stress. It will always be level, flat, horizontal, from one point to the other, and any given point in any body of water will be at the same level. Stop being stupid. FPV Angel, Charlie Allen, Greg T. Flatman, the trolls are getting exactly what they want. They talk absolute nonsense and divert away from proper discussion. I think the best thing to do would be to ignore them. I'll just laugh at them. You know? The trolls can be useful if you want to sharpen your tools. Because as you start to commit and understand your reality and you're committed to it and you're representing that, you start to see the responses, which then equips you for when you get these responses from elsewhere and how you respond to them. But then there comes a point where, you know, you're just going to, if you're trying to convince them and you think that you're going to convince them, you know, this is why I highlighted this idea of debates. Anybody that's professing debate, I just ridicule, go and take the piss out of them, use them for what I need. Because they should be smart enough to understand that it's not a debate, it can only be discussed. So if you've got an attitude of thinking, I'm going to convince them, I'm going to win, you're fucked. It's not about convincing and winning. It's about understanding. Again, you'll see it here. Why does stuff fall? Again, as I pointed out earlier, irrelevant. What's the shape of the table? I don't give a fuck how things fall. It doesn't give me anything about the shape of the table. Yeah, Ute, again, focus on that. This is what I'm saying as well. You need to remove yourself from the expectation of what other channels should and shouldn't be doing as well. Don't expect it. Have your say, have your own platform and say what you want to say. And if people take from that, good. But, you know, expecting from others is just, you're just going to set yourself up for a fall as well. This is part of this, you know, disempowering psychology that's been perpetuated of expectation from others and externals. Fuck all that stuff. Don't expect anything from anybody. Beyond imagine the curve, you run from that question as it pokes huge holes in your world. What question is this, Thin Fourth? What are you talking about? We'll see. Pragmatic, there is no defence to literalists because language is representative of reality and not reality itself. Literalists play dumb to confound nominalizations. Big words. You better tone down your vocabulary a wee bit. Thin Fourth, as gravity makes a flat earth impossible. Look, the way in which things fall is understood. Why they fall is not. It's an extrapolation. It's a fantasy, right? And it's a fantasy that's been extrapolated to explain away abnormalities, you know, ridiculous absurdities about living on the exterior of a potato rock. So why things fall and the way the things fall is in no way, shape or form ever going to give you anything measurable about the dimensions of the earth. It's ridiculous. You just rattle on about gravity and so do globe disciples because they think it somehow proves a globe when it doesn't. Dave Inco, how you doing, Lee Redpath? Lisa Hawk, how you doing, Johnny Groover? Weekend Deception. Again, the other players that you're going to see in this that push this religious bullshit, that if I'm not representing religion or Jesus and God and all this stuff, then I'm somehow a shill or whatever as well. Like, you know, again, I've been overly honest and upfront about this continually. I used to be leaning towards a materialistic philosophy because I could see no other avenue, because the world was just so confusing and unanswerable that, you know, I started to have that opinion. I'll lean towards it slightly. So, you know, when you have realizations and the intellectual honesty kicks in, you admit information doesn't come from anywhere other than mind. What we're involved in here is designed. You know, again, I'm not going to get into the speculations of who, what, why designed it and what our role is within it, because these things are all speculation. That's what the religions and the spiritual teachings and all that are. They are substitutes for actually knowing. We are in a position of rational, logical, sensed human beings that have the ability to pursue and understand the objective world that they are in. Right now, we're being contained in a situation where we are limited as to how far we can reach out in order to find out what's actually going on. So I'm not going to subscribe to any religious ideology because I think it's all fucking bullshit. Again, it is disempowering that you should bend your knee and be subservient, not this time not to a man, to an invisible entity. Whereas right now, I don't respect any invisible entity that we conceive and put something like this what we call reality, into motion. Where survival requires you to abuse and eat and consume other sentience. I don't get on board and subscribe to lovey-dovey and acceptance to this kind of life. You can go and take a run and fuck to yourself. But that doesn't take away from the fact that I admit and I am open to the point of that it isn't designed in some way, shape or form. But again, it When I look at the world that I'm living in, it tells me that it's something that I don't want to worship. And anything that did want my worship is no worth, fucking batting an eye at in the first place. Just as I've said, I want equality. Unless it or they want equality and to have me on the evil, the level that they're on, I don't want to know them. They're fucking morons. Needy, manipulative cunts. Whether that be your God or your aliens or whatever the fuck you think made this. Subservience is a fucking no-no. So suspend your bullshit of your bias and your clinging to a preferred religion. Fine. If that's what you believe and that's what you're invested in, is it not up to your God's job to judge me? No yours. And if it's true, I'm going to say the same fucking things that I'm saying right now to whatever the fuck it is. And it's going to have two options. Answer my fucking questions. Give me what I'm asking for, justify it to me, or wipe me out for eternity. I'd rather be nothing for eternity than live an eternity subservient to some hierarchy. Fuck you. Well, Shane, that's it. It is up to God or whatever people's concepts and ideas of God. So why the fuck are people running about claiming to represent this non-entity, this invisible overseer, and thinking they've got the right to fucking judge people? It's a total fucking nonsense. It's disempowering. Any of these religious, spiritual teachings, believe me, I've looked at them. I've tried to, take them on board. They are disempowering. Every single one of them denotes subservience. A lowering of your empowerment so that you're just at the whim of some fucking omnipotent superior power. Fuck that. People can have their subjective judgment if they like. That's up to them. It's never going to make it objectively true. And again, that's what I give a fuck about. People's subjective opinions and wish I couldn't care fucking less about them. No, but as a child, when you're impressionable, you never had that responsibility. It was never educated. It was never taught to you. So you become a victim of ideas and concepts and manipulation because you're impressionable. You're vulnerable as a child. So you never really had a choice. You were never given the tools of discernment to make an informed choice of what you were buying into and what you were being affected by. But now as an adult, you don't have that excuse. And again, I'm going to reiterate this. Now as an adult, I don't seek to blame anybody. I just accept it for what it was without the need to be militant and want to blame and oppress and punish some external source. Fuck that. Again, that's part of the games that they play that they want to tie you into. Forget about that. Forget about blame. Just take responsibility now. Pragmatic. The Bible is a blueprint for societal values. Well worth reading as a book. Literal ? I'm sorry, no, not for me. Contains truth. No doubt, complete truth. Once again, no, exactly correct, Matty. It just comes down to discernment and people's interpretations of what it is they're reading. But again, you're not going to find any answers like that, as far as I'm concerned, in some fucking book written by a guy. Again, for me, they're all religions and spirituality are all results of this, manipulation that we've been subjected to. They are the results of mental instability, emotional instability, fear, confusion. Substitutes, and probably necessary substitutes in order to appease the restless masses. So they don't get up off their ass and go pursuing lateral exploration, which the whole game is designed to prevent. Stay here, this is life, this is Mother Earth, this is where you're supposed to be. You're here to be judged in spiritual stuffsies, and this is all that exists, this wee potato rock, and it's all delicate, and you just stay here. And then once you eradicate that, it's, oh no, but we're still in God's kingdom. You're still here where you're supposed to be. It's a gift. Life's beautiful. We're in God's world, God's kingdom. Stay here. Don't empower yourself. Don't get up off your ass and go laterally trying to find out what else is there. Don't do that. Stay still. That's what the whole fucking game's about. Every fucking bit of it. Well, this talk, I've contemplated this as well. Life is hell, or a conception of hell, whatever you may think. There's different ways to look at that. I think as an individual and a subjective point of view, you can be in your own internal hell through confusion and emotional trauma and all that kind of stuff. But then you can move through that, and you have moments of joy and joy and laughter and love and warmth and all these different things. So there's a subjective, interpretation of an internal hell or heaven that you can look at. But then I'll look again at the objective. So remove the subjective aspects of me being in different mind states, and I can, take that as an internal hell or heaven or whatever it may be. I remove myself for that, and I just look at the nature of the place that I'm existing within. And again, even if you found some utopian, idealistic sense of being as a human and relations and society, and it was all roses and perfect and kumbaya, whatever your perception of that is, I would still be sitting here thinking to myself, why was this even put into motion? Where is it going? What's the purpose of it? Look at the animal kingdom. Look at what we call nature, the insects, the animals, how they live, what their life consists of, and ask yourself, what the fuck is that about? What is it really about? And again, for me, it's something that I just don't accept as something beautiful and something that I think is worthwhile. Not from a depressed, negative stance, just from an intellectual, honest assessment of where I actually live. So, some of the conversations I've had recently with people in regards to this, I think, a lot of people get dragged down by these spiritual concepts of lessons and judgment and transcendent meaning that emanates into the metaphysical realms where you're going to be tried and judged and you're here for lessons and all this stuff. I think for me that's where people are going wrong. Again, just look at it rationally, calmly, honestly. What do you witness here? What do you witness, right? I witness every sentient life doing what it wills. The only true thing I can say here is that will rules. Whatever you or an animal or anything with sentience wills to achieve, it will achieve it. Well, that's just scratching the back of your skull, or the will to formulate a 10,000 strong army to eradicate, a particular race of people. If your will is strong, your desire, your intent, your focus, coupled with your physical interaction, will achieve things within this realm. So then, how do you rationalize that and conceptualize it into transcendent meaning? This is where the religions and these spiritual ideas come in, the disempowering ones. Oh, you've just to refrain. You've not to take part, because these people will be judged. And if they've done wrong, they will be judged when you leave here. And they will be punished accordingly, whether it's a god sending them to hell, or karma is going to make them come back as a wee insect that lives up the arse of another animal. And you're having to postulate that you're some sort of soul that will survive death. Again, an assumption. So, what if you're a soul that survives death? Consciousness lives on. Then how do you start to conceptualize and place meaning upon this reality? Again, for me, I come back to it. Well, is it just a technology? Is it a technology that is deterministic? Am I really exercising free will? And if I'm exercising free will, is that then the nature of the technology, the game? That you come in, this virtual reality game machine, and you just play it out through your will and your desires and your intent, and whatever you achieve within the realm of the game stays there. And when you leave, you're back to the state you were in before. No judgment. It's just a technology. It's like going to the fairground and going on a roller coaster. You go on the roller coaster for the thrill of the ride. You don't transcend it, take it back to your everyday life and try and incorporate some sort of meaning from your experience of the roller coaster. But this is where I see people having problems, where they keep trying to transcend this existence and give it meaning to some higher spiritual encompassing fucking thing. I think people's perceptions and ideas are skewed and very limited. But again, I think that's done through the saturation, you know? That's a cyclophrase, you know, if it is a roller coaster, is it a technology for eternal consciousness and beings to just have an experience? And then you get into the concepts, the ideas of that. Well, you know, is it a deterministic type thing, or is it deterministic in regards to the parameters of the, you know, the area, the space that you're in? But, you know, what you achieve when you come in here is non-determined. But what we call the physical laws and the construct are deterministic. Or is it all deterministic? As the philosophical materialism would try and suggest, that it's your genes, it's evolution, it's some invisible non-entity that's dictating the whole thing, and you're a result of previous experiences, so you have no volition, you have no free will. Everything's predetermined. You just think that you're making free will choices when really you're not. These are the philosophical questions that I can play with and I can understand and I can entertain them, but that's all I can do with them. And I've had my fill of that. Again, it comes right back to it. What is happening here? There's a push to disempower, to keep me still, and no moving. But yet I'm full of this explorative nature with these senses to be able to discern and fulfill that exploration. So we have physical and psychological constraints to stop that from happening. So I'm tired of the philosophies and the religious and spiritual concepts and ideas and all that fucking crap I see an avenue here, a clear avenue of the possibility to eradicate the whole fucking thing, to connect us with our true natural history and understanding of where we are, why we're here, how we came to be. That's where my pursuit is. Not to fill my mind with fucking concepts and ideas and then to do intellectual, pseudo-intellectual battle with other fucking morons who are adopting concepts and ideas. Just all part, again, of the mental fucking illness, the mental dysfunction that I see. Determinism. Whether you look at it as determinism, deterministic, i.e. it's all pre-planned, you don't have any free will. It's disempowering. Again, it shirks responsibility. Well, I'm not really responsible for any of the choices or actions that I make because it's all determined. Or some higher entity put it on emotion and again it's disempowering because it's up to this higher entity and I'm just clueless, lost in the void, trying to make sense of it. It's just all crap. I just see these things, and that's what I'm always thinking. Is it taking my empowerment away, or is it instilling it? And 99.9% of the time, these concepts, these ideas are trying to remove responsibility and individualism. Awaken to deception. Dale, if the Earth was truly spinning 1,000 miles per hour, as it's said to be, wouldn't we be able to see that movement when leaving the ground in an airplane? Of course. Well, again, you're talking about Newtonian actual physics here. You know, where we can demonstrate what actually happens when you leave a moving surface and your relationship to that moving surface. But then they'll say shit like, oh, but imagine yourself inside a train. Well, a train and a car is a closed system. The globe is no professing a closed system. It's open. It's a gaseous environment adjacent to the vacuum of fucking space. So, you know, it's exactly that. And especially if you take something up and hover it still. As soon as, you know, fair enough, if you're going with the motion and you come up, you may still go with that motion. As soon as you go against it, you've now left that reference point, that motion. And you're either going against it or you're having to chase it to catch up with it again. That's just a fact. We can demonstrate that. But they'll use scenarios like inside a car with the windows closed. And that's not what they're claiming. And even at that, in their wee example, you know, if you took a drone inside a moving train and you then go against it, it's going to travel faster than it will for you to catch back up with where you left. So aye, it's just bullshit. Nessa Barbie, Dale, are you vegan, plant-based? I've been trying my best, to be honest with you. I'm still subjecting myself, or I'm still subject to pangs and you know, patterns that I've had my whole life. I was born into German origins and Austrian origins, and a lot of meat-based dietary and adapting and lighting the flavour, and I still have these pangs and cravings that sometimes, you know, have weak moments where I succumb to it. But, you know, I'm consciously trying to, you know, remove myself of that. Not because I'm following a trend, just because I have an empathy to sentience, and I don't want to contribute to the torture and the horror that these sentient animals and beings have to go through just so that I can sit and open up a nice wee pack and have a lazy ass burger. So I'm trying my best. My children, naturally, I mean, Xander, you know, gave him the options, told him what he was eating, and he refuses point blank through his own choice to eat, no eating meat, and he'll ask continually what's in these things, and he refuses it. So I just come from a different generation where I've got things that I struggle with, and I have weak moments, and I admit that. You know, I have moments of weakness. So again, no, because I'm influenced by a trend through my own discernment and looking at things for myself. And then again, you know, the same as everything, applying it myself, following my own road, see how I feel, see how it affects me. Not just listening to hearsay left, right, and centre and being influenced by that. It certainly is, Shane Corning. I totally agree, mate. Gaff, how you doing, mate? You alright? Still in Middle Earth? I see that, Nessa Barbie. There is a lot of amazing alternatives coming out now, and it's great to see. And I'll be the first to step up and try it, you know, just to feed those pangs, those desires, just like somebody else was saying there, the smells and the textures. It's just like a drug addiction almost. Well, that's what you're used to. You're accustomed to that. So, right. So, obviously, you know, I've got different ideas about what I would like. I mean, to be honest with you, I would like to just have an open panel here and have a quick fire thing where people can make points or bring up whatever they like. And if they're talking pish, I'm going to say it, or I can entertain, you know, a conversation. But unfortunately, we're dealing with a religious cult. And if I open the platform and I paste the link in here, we know what's going to happen. We're going to get insecure, needy, controlling fuckos that are going to come in and snipe the hangout, play porn, and try and get me shut down. So I'm limited. Well, really, I shouldn't have to deal with that. You know, I should have the freedom to just be able to post a link in there and to have people who are mannered, respectful, balanced, decent to just come in. You know, even if it's something they want to be confrontational about, fine. But this attitude of shutting the hangout down and playing porn to get you shut down, you know, it's a risk that I just don't want to take. So I think what I'm going to have to do from now on, and I hope people hear this, if you would like to come on the panel or you would like to come in and have something to say, please contact me through the week at a date before the Saturday live event so that we can have a chat and we can arrange so that I can maybe have pre-arranged guests that are going to come on and discuss whatever you want to discuss. You know, other than that, I don't have many other options available to me. I'm beyond now reaching out and having what you would call a team, because as soon as you start having things like that, complications start happening, communications break down, and it's the same old, you know, social dynamics that creep up that I just don't have any attention for. I've not got any fucking patience for it. So I'm limited right now in regards to my scope or what I can open up to. But, you know, I've still got the phone line. I can just continue to have a live phone in. As I say, I can have people pre-arranging to come on when they want to come on, and just take it from there until maybe I can set up a process of just posting the link again and letting anybody come in and try and have their say. I want to try and keep it open as much as I can for that. So keep hammering it home, bud. I've had doubts along the way, but these doubts are fucked off with understanding. Exactly. Colin, exactly, mate. We all get through it, and that's a healthy thing. That tells you that you're being honest with yourself, that you're entertaining doubts, and that you're looking at them and not being scared to turn and face them. So good on you, man. Hi Dale, I was playing poker online the other day and doing my usual flat earth chat trying to get a response. The rest of the players at the table, when one of the other players revealed himself as a flat earther. So I said to him, "Do you sub anyone on YouTube?" He replied with, "I like Dell from Scotland." So your message is spreading wide and far, mate. Good, as long as it's the message, you know, because it's not about me. I just, you know, feel as if I'm just a representative of, you know, objectivity, facts, and that's it. You know, I ride that wave. It's not mine. You know, the facts are the facts. They don't belong to anybody. you know. So also over the past week, I met a flat earther in a posh bar in Liverpool, and we had a good chat. And also a surgeon who my missus works with is a light aircraft pilot, and he told me that I've been wearing him down with regards to what the shape the earth is. He's a pilot, so he gets what we're saying and can't deny his senses, you know? Exactly. Again, this comes into this whole aspect of these people, you know, this is again this hierarchy. Just because they're a pilot, they somehow have a raised intelligence above the commoner or whatever. It's bullshit. They were born into this cult the same as us. They're subject to the cult and its ways the same as anybody else. So just because they fly an aircraft doesn't mean that they're no blinded to this religious symbol and mantra that they've had, you know, pounded into them through time. Again, showing that no everybody has to be in on the lie. I wasn't in on the lie. I was just a fucking a cult member that was born into it. The same as the generations that are aligned with my generations and a couple before it and up to this present day. These are all generations who have been born into this that don't know any other option. So it's not until things are pointed out to them. It's the same as the tradesmen and all the applied practical people in the world right now. They know these things. They know how reality works. They know how the substances behave. They just have it suspended because this image dominates their consciousness. As soon as you point it out to them, the penny drops. And it's fucking game over for the religious programming because it's bullshit and it's paper thin. It only has a power of influence when you're ignorant to it. So all in all, a good week from my end of getting people to think and question their perceived reality. Take care, mate, Mr. Cheswick. Fucking brilliant, Mr. Cheswick. Again, a testament to the real activist that goes about his business quietly on an individual level and does it right. Our last read an article out today in one of her shitty magazines regarding flat Earth and obviously entitled Lunacy, but it was in there and carried a picture alongside it emphasising research flat Earth. However it's titled, at least it was published. Cheers, Andy. Well, that's it. Again, you've got to understand and have these suspicions about how the propaganda works, regardless of what it is. Whether you think they're opposing something or against or for, the fact that it's been brought out and said out into the open is how propaganda works. It makes it relevant. It puts it into the consciousness of people. So that's where my suspicion comes in about what they have planned for the future in regards to dismantling this bullshit lie that they cannot perpetuate any longer and what they're going to replace it with. I have to be suspicious and have that as a possibility. So people need to be very cautious. So again, if you want to text or phone, the number is 07393 654 544. Anybody that wants to join me, I'm going to switch on my Google Hangouts right now as well. Anybody that has me on that, by all means, send me a message there. And I can invite you through the Google Hangouts if you want to come on. I'm just waiting to get boots up. I don't know why it's not showing. There we go. Inspire. This is another aspect. This account user known as Inspire or Nisper to some people. I'll come back to that. Hello. Speaking. Hang on to stick you on the loudspeaker. Hold on. Hello.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
You're alright, mate. No, I just wanted to phone up. I watch you every week, mate. I love you.
Oh, cheers. Do you love me or do you love the information?
I love you anyhow, mate. I think you're brilliant.
Oh, thank you. If you come up,
there's a good power above us that's guiding you. And there's a few things that I disagree with you about, I think, but you're close to the truth, the way I see the truth.
I mean, disagreements are fine, and I'm open to disagreements as long as people can articulate, you know, what it is they disagree on, and then I can discuss it, you know.
Oh, sorry, Stuart from Warrington, anyhow. I didn't introduce myself.
Ah, nice one. Sure.
But yeah, I just want you to hang in there and keep doing what you're doing because you're doing a really good job.
Well, that's it,
Really
mate.
good job.
I don't intend on going anywhere, to be honest with you, but it's too important to me, you know.
But it must be hard work, though.
Okay, there's times when things become hard and difficult, the same as everything else. But you know, the bigger picture is what I focus on, and that's what's more important. So it's just part and parcel of the process and this kind of journey. You get used to it, you know.
Yeah. Well, I was watching a guy. I don't know if you know about a man I was watching today. Richard Hall, his name is. There's a lot of really good things.
Mm-hmm.
And I've just got my mate on Twitter today. I was in the army for a couple of years, 4 years or something. My mate was in a bit longer.
Yeah.
He thinks I'm a conspiracy theorist. And I got him into a few things today because this guy had done something on Giordano and stuff.
Right.
And but he's getting interested in it. So I showed him about that. I showed him about something else. I said, have a look at this space stuff as well. I said, it's fucking nonsense, mate.
Yeah.
And he's interested in that now.
Good.
Well, what I'll tell you about this Richard Hall was, on his latest show, he turned around and basically said that everything's true. He said, but he believes that this flat earth thing's not true, if you know what I mean.
Right.
And it annoyed me.
Well, it should.
I thought how clever he is about everything else, but he thinks that the government are using the flat earth as a tool as disinformation, if you know what I mean.
No, well, I would say the opposite.
And I had me thinking, no, Del, but I watched you and I thought, no, water does not bend.
Well, this is a thing, mate. You know, I've been involved with what you would call the conspiracy type scenario for a very long time, over 20 years. And guys like Rich Hall, fair enough, it's this whole 80-20 type scenario where they offer up things that are plausible, that have some sort of roots to it. But then the other 80% of it is just disempowering bullshit that's hearsay, that's useless to the individual, that he focuses on scenarios that are in no way, shape or form relevant to my direct experience or that I'm ever going to be in touch with. You know, and that's when you start to see these people in their gatekeeping behaviours, because, you know, an objective scientific question in regards to the shape of the earth is a question for everybody, that's in everybody's direct experience. A fucking UFO sighting or something that happened in a military base in 1967 is out with mine or your perception or experience. It's just useless to me or you. So I would say the opposite of guys like Rich Hall. You know, this question empowers people, gives people a real sense of grounding and opens up the door to a clear perception, whereas filling people's heads full of aliens and outer space and you know, military stuff that went on in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s, it's just all fucking garbage.
Well, this is what I can't get my head around, because when I introduce people, because he does a lot of good stuff, you know, about Madeleine McCann and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And when I tell someone about him, I say, this guy's clever. He's worked for BAE Systems on the nuclear.
But listen,
he's an engineer.
Aye.
No, but he should know what he's on about. He's an engineer.
Yeah.
But then when I hear him saying that, well, we definitely don't live on a flat earth.
Yeah.
I can't agree with it.
Well, listen. This is the point, because you just said something there about the Madeleine McCann thing, right? What did Rich Hall or any of these people ever offer that resolved the issue? Where is Madeleine McCann? Nobody fucking knows. So what the fuck is Rich Hall even talking about? Again, it just proves that they're bringing up these subjects and pushing it like it's got some sort of relevance, that him talking about it is going to have some sort of impact, and it doesn't have any impact. It's a situation and a scenario that none of us were involved in, that we're never going to know the full facts of. It's useless to an individual. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah.
But I do think he's well meaning, but I can see what he's saying.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
Well, it can be well meaning, it can be useful if he's highlighting flaws in specific claims in regards to whatever event or scenario. But you know, that's as far as it goes. Just because you can see an anomaly in some testimony or some piece of information.
Well, have you seen what he said about the man? Have you seen his videos of Madeleine McCann?
No, to be honest with you, I don't pay any attention. I lost interest a long time ago.
Honestly, trust me, if you seen him, you wouldn't think he was part of anything.
No, I know,
I said to my manager at work, I said, "What's this video that he's done on this?" So I was invested in work.
But here's the thing, mate. This is what I'm saying. I just go right to the end result. Did he find where Madeleine McCann was and what actually happened?
No, well, what he did is he sent all his information over to this guy who's an expert in deception in America, right? And basically, this guy's put it on. So we can.
That's what I'm saying. We can recognise deception, but that's my point. Although I can recognise the deception, does it resolve the issue? Whereas Madeleine McCann, nobody knows.
Well, I don't. To be honest with you, I didn't you up to defend it, but
no.
I'll tell you one thing, right? He's attacking the British government big time. That you don't trust him on anything.
Apart from when they tell you there's a globe, you have to trust them when they say that. Apparently.
No, he's not. Well, yeah, I know what you're saying now, but on that he's saying, don't trust him. He's saying the state are killing people.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, that's it. Well, this is the thing. How can he be cherry picking? How can he say they lie? They are known liars, but then cherry pick and say, "Oh, but they're no lying about that." You know what I mean? There's a contradiction in there.
I agree with you 100%. It hurt me today when he heard him say that. But I can see why he said it, because what he's shown you was Japanese martial arts, where if someone throws a punch at you, what you do is, instead of trying to block it, you grab hold of the arm that's coming at your face and you move it towards that direction of travel.
Yeah.
Then you make a move. And what he's saying is, with the conspiracies, instead of them denying it, what they're doing is they're grabbing hold of the conspiracy and pulling it even further to the madness, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And I thought, yeah, I agree with you. So they're taking control. They know that we're all finding the truth out about things. So instead of denying it, they're throwing more out there and making it even stranger.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. So this is what I'm saying. It's 80-20 bait and switch, mate, and it fills people with irrelevant, useless information a lot of the time. Where I'm just about, what's empowering to the individual, what's relevant, and what's important to them. And fine if somebody can highlight deceptions or anomalies and particular claims and narratives, then good. That's enough for you to know there's lies being told, but it's never going to offer you anything, with closure. A lot of these things don't give you closure, whereas a question of your objective reality, everybody can discern that for themselves. It's in their direct experience, so there's a huge difference. So I have to be suspicious about why he would even say that and why he's not even opening it up for conversation.
I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
I didn't before you know.
That's all right. No, you're all right, mate. No, I'm not wound up. It's just a chat. It's just the way the discussion went. So.
You don't think these people who are running this place are close to the end game, and that's why they threw all this out there? That's how it feels to me. It feels like you know what I mean. They're throwing things out there now, and they're close to another point where they want to be.
Well, maybe that's.
You say you don't believe in. To be honest, I think you do believe in a God.
Well, I believe in intelligent design. I mean, that's just, I have to be honest enough to believe in intelligent design.
Got to be,
of course. Of course, but for anybody to try and then tell me what that designers are and what they want and what this is about, that's where it starts to get into grey, murky waters where I'm not willing to entertain that, because it's just coming from people the same as me, So, just, I don't know why people are not just satisfied with the fact that you admit and you accept intelligent design in some way, shape or form. It's just the concepts and ideas of what that is and what it wants that I don't agree with.
Well, if it is an intelligent design,
yeah.
Well, they've got to have put us here for a reason.
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? If we're here for a reason.
Well, that reason could be that there is other areas and that we're no native to this area, and there's been some sort of tampering that's went on by some other advanced type of being. There's so many possibilities. It's just this fact that people jump to a religious, spiritual doctrine that they start to push as that's the reasons why we're here and that's what we're here for. That's when I'd start to disagree.
I know what you're saying, but what if the What if we're not meant to know the reason why we're here?
Well, why would I have a question? Why would I have the ability to ask that question if I'm not meant to know?
I know what you're saying.
You know, if you're a designer and you don't want your beings to know, don't give them the capacity to ask the question. Do you know what I'm saying?
But we've all got free will, haven't we?
Well, that's it.
We've all got free will.
So the point.
I grew up a Catholic and that, and to look into my family history, they're all from Ireland and blah blah blah. It only takes 2 minutes of looking into what the Pope's getting into and stuff, and I think this is all mad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But all the time, so it led me to reading into the Bible, believe it or not. I've only read a bit of it, and as a Catholic, I've never known it, but I've read a bit. Read the Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John bit.
Yeah.
And I keep. There's a lot of things that keep coming up, you know. Like the truth will set you free, and it's not something that a bad person would say.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not something. I can't remember things off the top of my head, but.
Well, I just think it's unnecessary, you know, for people to start arguing about the concepts of God and what we're here for. I mean,
I don't want to argue about the concepts of God.
No.
What I'm trying to say, what I'm thinking is that I don't know how to put it better than this, but the evil bastards that are running this place are just trying to fucking confuse us.
Well, again, you know, we have to make assumptions to know what their incentives are and their reasoning, you know, and I'm not willing to go there. I'm not willing to jump in and say it's for this reason and that reason. Again, I have to suspend that and still say there might still be some justification for why this maybe had to happen or why it naturally progressed to this kind of situation. There's so many unknowns there for me to start, you know, jumping in my assumptions and be concrete in my assumptions. Do you know what I'm saying? We don't have enough information yet to know.
Have you never? I know you're not going to agree with it, so I know I'm a bit worried about asking you. But have you ever spoke to any psychics or anything like that?
Of course, I used to share a building with a psychic centre.
Because I spoke. I'm not going to go off into a mad level of things here, but the last person I spoke to, he said to me, and I was dead into politics at the time. I weren't into the flat at all because I'm not. You know what I mean? I weren't at that part of my life.
Yeah.
And I was into Donald Trump. I saw the politics, and they were making out like Hillary Clinton was like the Antichrist, and she child trafficked this, and they were into drugs, and they'd flown all this in and all that stuff. And he said to me, what you need to worry about, he says, when the abnormal, because I like Donald Trump as much as the next person, but he won't see out a second term, because what you need to worry about is when the abnormal becomes the normal.
Yeah.
And that's what I can see in my life now every time I turn the telly on.
Yeah, that's it.
Abnormal's becoming normal.
It's absurd. The absurdities are being accepted as a way of life, you know?
And I don't know. I don't want to take it on a religious thing, but basically, the truth movement or whatever I've seen, it's led me towards. I wouldn't say I was a Catholic anymore.
Yeah.
I'd say I was, you know what I mean? I was Catholic. But I had a Celtic top when I was a kid, and Man United, and blah blah. But I'd say I was a Christian now.
Right. Cool.
But that's where it's led me to. And I know there's no proof or whatever on stuff, but
yeah. Well,
I don't know.
Well, that's it, mate. None of us know, and that's the whole point, you know. And I'm quite happy for people to have their faiths or their concepts, their beliefs, their ideas, but it should never be brought into an objective arena and pushed as anything other than a subjective opinion or desire or wish or belief. You know, as long as people can categorise these things and articulate that that's exactly what it is, then I don't have an issue with it. It's only when it's being pushed to me that if I don't accept it, I'm this or I'm that, or, you know, it starts to become a problem. That's when people are moving into zealotry and, you know, dogmatic, you know, beliefs and pushing it. So, you know, each to their own in regards to that, because we don't have the objective answers of our existence. And, you know, I'm willing to suspend all beliefs and wishes and biases to just try and pursue and find out exactly what it is, you know.
I think you're doing a really good job, you know. And even if you don't say, yeah, I think you covered, mate. You're doing a really good job, and you're making a lot of people who wouldn't have seen out.
So what you're saying is I'm getting into heaven. Is that what you mean?
I think, yeah, you're definitely in heaven, trust me. Don't worry about that.
What's it like there? I want to know what it is. If it's just all fluffy clouds and people sitting about in the lotus position, I'm going to be bored with that. I don't want that.
We've all had experiences. My nan was a big cat. My nan's like, my name's family's name was Whelan on one side.
Right.
And they're all big Catholics. And I remember asking her, and my brother, who's a Cockney, got near-death experiences.
Yeah.
And my nan was the Irish woman kind of thing, and she didn't like talking about it. And she said she floated up, when she had an heart attack once, she floated up on her bed and she could see herself in the hospital at Warrington.
Yeah.
So there's definitely something after the go.
Oh, well,
these fuckers want you to not think that there's something after the head.
Yeah.
You to just go and be a selfish bastard.
Aye.
And do whatever the fuck you want. Don't go to the gigs, do that, think about yourself. So if they want you to do that, there's a reason.
Well,
and I don't know what it is. I don't know.
Well, I'm sure we'll find out.
The answer is to be a nice person, and if you can see someone on the street, help them out.
Well, that's me.
That's all I think. Help them out, and if you can help someone, help them, and if you can't, you can't.
Exactly, mate. Well, that's it. If you pursue that,
if your life like that, you don't need to go to church every week. You don't need to do anything. I don't think the church is a holy place. I think all you've got to do is be a good person. Well,
cool, man.
And I think you're being a good person, Del. So yeah, even though you'll be all right, you'll go to heaven.
Good man.
and if you don't go there, Del, I'll put a word in for you.
Cool. But just let them know I don't play the harp. I only play the guitar. So you know.
I don't think I play the harp, Del. I think maybe we'll get into Celtic 11 or something like that.
I wouldn't mind that. If there's a Celtic 11 heaven team up there, I'm up for that. I'll fulfil that role.
All right, mate.
Cheers, bud. Cheers.
All right, speak to you soon.
Take it easy, buddy. Hi Dale, great work from my fellow Celt in North Wales. Cheers, man. Which American Spirit is it, Dale? Oh, the tobacco. It's a yellow. It's a yellow one. Smoke. Regarding what happens when tipping point is reached, cometh the hour, cometh the man, but beware the Pied Piper. Exactly. Exactly. So, what was the point I was making there? I had to shut off the Google because people were phoning me while I was on the phone, which no, I don't appreciate. Obviously, I'm speaking to somebody, I can't answer anything. And if you're trying to call me on the Google, it's not going to work because my camera and my microphone are hooked up to the Hangout that I'm in right now. You need to, send me a message of invitation, or you want an invitation. So what I was saying before. Eric Boshin, can you stop calling me? I can't answer it. What I was saying about Inspire. Now, Inspire was a character that came to the platform a while ago with a bit of an attitude and full of preconceived ideas about who I was, what I represented, and the communication wasn't very good. But since then, the guy asked if I could speak to him in private, and he showed his face, he showed his camera, and I had a really good discussion with the boy. The man, and he had the capacity and the honesty to be upfront about coming loaded with preconceived ideas and his disruptive attitude and how he realizes that. And then we had a great discussion about consciousness and some of the philosophy and stuff like that. So it just goes to show that if you're willing and you're open to it, people have realizations, they come into it. And I appreciate it. I appreciate somebody like him, having that backbone and the ability to step up to the mark and have the confrontation and admit some of these things. So I just want to extend my appreciation to that and nod to it when I live. And I see there's a message there. Could you unban me? And I will, so he can participate in the chat. Unfortunately, while I'm on, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that because there's a fucking abundant list of banned accounts that I'm going to have to troll through to find you. But I will do that after this one, Inspire. So, just so that you know. Rock Vibrations, just finished. Crazy week, came away out driving, blah, blah. So this is open link in the new tab. Hold on. Rock Vibrations, who had arranged a meet-up for the 23rd of June in Edinburgh, a barbecue at a hired building. She's put up a wee advert for it, so I'm just going to share it in the chat box. There's a wee video there for anybody that's looking for the details of when this meetup's going to be happening and where it's going to be happening. It's there for anybody to look at right now. Bill, Flat Earth, Florida, I see you've messaged as well, mate. I hope you're well. Right, let me see here. Invitations. Robert Matthews. So again, people, you'll need to contact me through the week if you want to jump in for a chat. Hi there, I just wanted to join for a quick chat to point something out. I have noticed recently, nothing fancy. John Doe. Well, John Doe, I don't know that account. I'm going to have to verify it before I hand the link out. I can only apologise for that right now. So, right now the only options I've got available is the phone and the chat box. So I don't know if anybody's got anything they want to talk about, any of the points I've raised, or any other topic of discussion you want me to bring up. You can let me know in the chat box right now. No story now. How you doing? Sun's up in New Zealand now. Same sun as is shining on Dale in Scotland. Exactly. It's still clearly in my view right now. I can see it. Right. Nobody's getting anything to say. Have yous? I'll make a smoke, people. No worries, Eric. It's cool. I just had to cut it off because it was coming through the speaker, obviously. Eric Boshin was trying to contact me there. Matt C, yeah, I do something about the beginning of all this, like 1700s or something, Dale. Well, the 1700s, late 1700s, according to what is kind of traceable, is when they started to remove certain aspects from the education curriculum, the vital parts, things like the trivium, the quadrivium. And it went from a liberal arts education into what we see today, which is, disempowering bit parts of useless information just to formulate you into being a cog within the workings of a machine, and never to be empowered and free thinking, standing on your own 2 feet. So I think there's something run about the 1700s that I would get on board with in regards to this situation that we're in right now. Jordan Davies, I used to be able to astral project when I was a kid without even trying. I didn't need DMT. Just as the caller was stating about the near-death experience, which now seems to be being documented quite a lot. There seems to be quite a lot of work being done in that regard to what people are experiencing in these near-death situations, and also at death, in regards to the familiar patterns that seem to happen and go on with people. So for me, it does lend to the whole notion that there is something going on. You know, the materialists will come back and say it's just the mechanisms, the coping mechanisms of the brain in order to deal with death. You know, but then again, you have to ask, what are these coping mechanisms for? Who? What aspect? This conscious entity that is the machine? I mean, none of it makes any fucking sense. You know, why does the brain create an entity that has an eye or a sense of self, but then have to create all these fantastical aspects in order to delude and make illusions for this aspect of itself? It's just all fucking mental gymnastics that don't make any fucking rational sense at all, you know? What vibrations? I posted it in the chat. Hello? Hello? Oh, go on. Go on. What influence a monarchy has? Well, you know, whatever influence they may have behind the scenes, it just represents a hierarchy, a symbol, you know, for people to be subservient to, and to feel belonging and a part of. It's just part of the fucking psychological entrainment. Elevating a particular bloodline or family into this stature of supremeness and above, it just feeds into hierarchy. That's what it represents. Hello?
Hi, Dale, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, yeah, it's Paul.
Paul?
Just wanted to come on for a chat.
How you doing, Paul?
How you doing? All right.
No bad.
I came on a while ago when they put the car in space.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was just so livid about it, and we had a bit of a chat then. I was talking about, you said trying to come on one of the video ones. Like, I tried a lot of times, but I couldn't get on, so I hang up again on the phone.
Cool. Well,
so just wanted to talk about, last time I phoned up, we were talking about ideology in the old Marxist sense. Of the things that we know that we don't know we know. Like, I gave an example of how close we stand to each other in conversation. It's just something that's like a learned. It's not something we ever objectify. It's just something that's always there. We stand a certain distance to each other. So I've got a Greek friend who just come in, would stand much closer to me than a South Korean friend. And it's just because
that's right.
And I equate that to ideology. And
culture.
One of the things we know that we don't know we know is that intelligence is proportional to how much we're prepared to disavow our sensory experience.
Yeah.
So we kind of like, so if I say something that's, sounds like I'm just adopting sensory experience, like, isn't it silly that people on the other side of the world consider our profit because they're upside down? I just get laughed at, you don't understand gravity.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, it's a way of thinking that's kind of embedded into people to think that intelligence involves disavowing your senses.
Yeah.
And it's not even something that's questioned. So what I want to talk about, following on from that, is like sometimes on the channel you talk about philosophy, and it's kind of like in a broad term. Like sometimes people say, "Oh, flat earthers say this," or "flat earthers say that," and then they'll propose, they'll say something that some people say the same. I find on the channel sometimes that, I think that the channel is the most philosophical channel on YouTube.
Yeah.
I haven't seen a more philosophical channel, because philosophical in the sense that it identifies presuppositions and then challenges them.
Yeah.
It doesn't just challenge presuppositions. Part of philosophy is being able to identify presuppositions. What are the presuppositions in my thinking?
Yeah.
What am I presupposing in order to say something else?
Yeah.
And how far can I take that back?
Yeah.
Maybe not beyond the limitations of my language, but I can always go back and back and back and say, okay, so what's the foundation for me having that thought? Okay, so what's the foundation for that foundation?
Yeah. Yeah.
And in that sense, I think the channel is really philosophical, because it's always challenging, it's always identifying and challenging presuppositions. I think what this powers that be want is that they're happy for this idea that people believe that they're being critical, in the sense that oh yeah, you know, transgender, I'm open-minded to that stuff.
Yeah.
But it's about giving people the presuppositions that they think they should challenge. But really, like, I think why the channel's so good, and, you know, why I still listen, because you're very careful not to adopt a replacement model. I mean, that fact of the channel for me is like is it the canary down in the mine?
Yeah. Well,
if they have, so once you start proposing models on the channel, that's when I've you know, if fair enough, if you're just saying it as this is purely speculative, it could be this, it could be that, fine. But once you start proposing a model, then that's the canary dead down the mine, and I'm jumping out kind of
exactly.
thing.
So, well, I would be the same as well, mate, and I appreciate that you recognise that, because that's always been my method. You know, just to always question, where does that come? What am I presupposing? What am I having to assume? What's the root of that? You know, this formula of thought or a proposition, whatever it may be. That for me is the method to find yourself and to remove, you know, any preconceived notions and beliefs and biases that you may have within yourself. So I think it's hugely important. It's a big aspect of this, and I appreciate that you recognise that.
Yeah, it's the key aspect. Because part of that is, like you said, the difficult part is, okay, I mean, if we all just, you know, can recognise that we can be wrong about things, that's fine. We can change our ideas, but it's identifying where the presuppositions are. Because, like, thinking, for example, I had a clever guy called in the other couple of weeks ago. He was a really switched on guy. He was talking about various things, but he had an unacknowledged presupposition in the sense that, you know, we're kind of meant to be here.
Yeah.
So the foods that we eat are designed for our bodies, and this kind of sense of, you know, that's a presupposition.
Exactly.
And then you pointed out to him, and I thought, you know, wow, this was why the channel's so philosophical.
Yeah.
And it's just it grates on me a little bit when I hear, like, you and Gav say, our philosophers say this, or philosophy is not a history. It's not about metaphysics comparing idealism versus realism. Philosophy is about, what do I think? Why do I think it?
Yeah. Well, that's probably, you know, I will take responsibility for that, for not articulating that properly. You know, I'm just using it in the broad sense of people's conceptions of what they think philosophy means, and materialism and dualism, idealism, and you know, I dare take responsibility for using it in that broad sense. So I appreciate you pointing that out to me, mate.
Yeah. Cool. And the channel does actually have a philosophical position as well, which is empirical realism. Yeah.
Yep. But that, I mean, I understand that, but you know, what other avenue do you have in order for us as people in regards to each other? You know? Yeah,
I agree. In terms of, as long as it's only that, I think it's okay.
Yeah.
But I'm always, I don't know how I'm going to go about this without really going around the houses, because there's one thing I want to say the next thing, and so on. But I'm looking out for the replacement model, the replacement lie, or the adjacent lie, whatever, capital R, capital A, whatever it's going to be.
Yeah.
Whether they're going to run it alongside the existing lie, whether they're going to look for something else. And one thing that I can see might be in their arsenal, might be that they seem to be pushing a bit, is artificial intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I mean, and again, I mean, you can see with artificial intelligence, you can see ideology creeping in again, because I've noticed that I've been, like on a Facebook feed, and other people constantly seeing these images of these Boston Dynamic robots. I don't know if you've seen it.
Mm-hmm. They're
these robots that are behaving like very human-like. They're able to jump up and down off boxes, climb up walls, answer the telephone, wank you off for you. They can do everything. and what's happening is that people are watching that, and the kind of knee-jerk reaction is, oh, it's what's that thing? What was that thing? Terminator 2, Skynet.
Yeah.
Skynet. Is that what it's called? Oh, it's Skynet. It's happening. It's happening.
Yeah.
No, it's not happening.
No.
This is because people don't understand, and this is what I was going to say about empirical realism as well. I think refuting the globe does not necessarily require that you be an empirical realist.
Yeah.
And also, I'll take the further step that empirical realism might not be the best way to understand ourselves in the world. And I need to really qualify that, because I'm not anti-science.
Yeah.
And I'm not like a philosophical skeptic or any of that sort of nonsense.
No.
I'm just saying that
it's just a separation of the categories from metaphysical. You know, when we start getting into these realms, there has to be a separation, and we have to articulate that that's what we're involved in.
Okay,
you know?
but even with given the separation, I agree. So when we're trying to reach an objective agreement about reality, we have to, in a sense, be empirical realists.
Yeah.
I have to be able to take you and show to you and repeat to you the thing that I'm trying to claim.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's not an objective truth.
No.
So we have to be really vigilant to do that. I agree, 100%. It's when you then try and take that model and extrapolate it.
Yeah.
Having to being like an ontological account of what reality is. It doesn't work.
No.
Because I can think of an example here. There's a lot of talk on the channel about the eye, how the eye receives information. I think some of this, I mean, it's interesting stuff, but I think some of this is a red herring. I think like the model of empirical realism relies on the subject-object dichotomy in knowledge. So there's me in here, world out there, and there's some kind of intermediary between me and the world, whether it's sensory inputs, language, whatever, and there's some kind of processing that's going on between that thing out there and me in here. I think that's the wrong model of knowledge. So I think that's the model that AI relies on, and that's why AI has never been successful and can't be successful, because knowledge or experience of reality is not that of a subject apprehending an object with some kind of intermediary in the way, whether it's language or sensory data. That's what I want to claim, and that's what I want to just to say for the channel, to be vigilant against extrapolating from saying, okay, we can use empirical realism to identify we've been told a load of shit.
Yeah.
We've been told about a board, that's bullshit. Fine, that'll work. But then just be careful then to then extrapolate a whole ontology from subject-object realism. One example I can think last time I found out, I really strong on myself a bit, but I'm sort of borrowing here from Heidegger, philosopher Heidegger completely. I'm not claiming this is original. I don't think I've had an original forever, but our being in the world, the way we are, I can't explain. Just he uses the concept of being in the world. This is how we go about our business in the world: riding the bike, hammering the nail. How we go about our business in the world, our being in the world, is prior to any subject-object dichotomy or split. Because we're always already in like a work world of things that are meaningful to us. And I think here the example of he uses an example, and I think it's a good example of a hammer. When you're going about your business and hammering and nailing, you're not objectifying the hammer. It's almost not there in a sense.
Yeah.
And it's not my relationship to the hammer. Is not that it's got a metal head, it's got a wooden handle, it weighs measurable X grams, it comes from width.
No, I know what you're saying, but you still had to understand the materials at a certain point. It's like, you know, when I had to learn the guitar, you know, there was a focus and intent. I had to understand the mechanical process, the substance I was applied to. But then through that understanding and application and practice, it becomes like a second nature where I'm not having to, you know, consciously focus on these things. But I did have to formulate an understanding before I go to that point.
In order for you to formulate an understanding of the guitar, it has to already make some sort of sense to you already.
Yeah.
As an object in the world, as a thing that you held in your hand, that you struck up and down with your hand, it already had to have some kind of meaning for you before you got into that pure objectifying meaning of it. It was an object. It was something you used.
Yeah.
So I'd say the usefulness of things comes before we objectify them. We're always already in a world that makes sense to us in a way before we objectify it. I'm not sure if I'm making that.
Well, kind of. I'm a bit grey, to be honest with what it is what the point actually is. I don't know. It's maybe just because we're on the phone and you maybe feeling a bit rushed. I think it would be a great conversation for us to have if you want to arrange, and you can come on, and we can sit and we can have a better discussion about it. But I'm trying to grasp the point that you're making, to be honest with you, but I'm struggling. I don't know if it's maybe just the examples. I don't know.
Yeah.
No, I'm open, totally open. It's not that I'm rubbishing, and I'm not. You know, I don't have the desire to understand what it is you're saying. I just think it's a communication thing. You know, maybe the examples. I don't know if that makes sense.
Well. go use an example of artificial intelligence then. I mean, do you think artificial intelligence is possible? This is just one example.
But what in regards to artificial intelligence having consciousness and sentience?
Artificial intelligence has something that can actually reflect on itself.
No.
No.
I think that's all programmed.
Why do you think it's not possible?
No, because artificial intelligence, as I know it, has to have input from an external mind source, which would be us, and it doesn't have the ability. Unless we know fully what consciousness is in an objective fashion, how could we ever possibly, achieve that in a machine or an artificial intelligence? We don't even understand it for ourselves, never mind being able to implement it to a machine. But yet again, I can't be a machine, so I don't know if a machine's having a conscious experience at some level. So it's one of the questions I think that's impossible to answer. But as far as I'm aware right now, I can't see a machine ever. It has to depend on an input, a programmer, to program it to have responses and to react in certain ways. And it may have some sort of adaptive ability to recognise certain patterns and to have responses, but every single one of these are pre-programmed. Does that make sense?
Yeah. But the claim will be, if they ever do try and throw that lie out there, I've heard sort of some nonsense like some computers are talking to each other in a language that we don't understand, this kind of crap, or we're going to have to close down the internet because these computers are talking to each other. Something for our safety, or this sort of crap. I think that the reason why what they'll try and push is that when processing power gets great enough, or what they could try and push, when processing power is great enough, then the thing is able to reflect on itself. That's the whole. And
well, that's
consciousness is to do with processing power. I don't think it's to do with the subject.
Well, that's again, that's
by an object.
That's an assumption from a kind of materialistic, standpoint, where brains and sentience is purely mechanical, and there is no separation, there is no dualism of a separate entity, whether that be mind, soul, or whatever people want to call it. So they're formulating that from a purely materialistic stance, which is no proven objectively. They don't know what consciousness is. They don't even know, why we're conscious, why we have a sense of self, or why we even sleep, or why we dream. They don't have answers to any of these things. So I think it's a fantasy, a wishful thinking from a materialistic point of view, which I have to suspect is being pushed deliberately. But I don't think their machines are ever going to achieve that.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Was it interesting earlier when you were talking about the veganism thing?
Mm-hmm.
I find the fact that people are able to take something as fundamental as the fact that they've accepted all their life that it's okay to eat other sentient beings or enslave them, and then to recognise that, it's always a bit of a mystery to me why somebody who can recognise something as sort of central to their life as that was a bullshit that they were fed from the beginning, and it's still something they're still having to engage with now. Like you were saying, like every now and again you're tempted to eat a dead animal or whatever it is. Just because of the way it's been ingrained into you, almost into your psyche, but also into your biology. The cravings for this kind of food, and
Well,
I find it weird that there's still that it's interesting that something like that, because it's got an immediate ethical element, people are able to say, well, maybe everything I've been told is bullshit about this, and it is bullshit because we shouldn't be eating these animals. But then they can't take the step to say, well, maybe everything I've been told about where I live is bullshit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
It's interesting how people are able to take a step in that direction and almost be critical thinkers in that regard. And I wonder if that's because there's an immediate ethical element involved.
Yeah. It could be. I think there's a lot of people like that don't want to face, the possibility. Again, people will entertain the notions of judgment and their behaviour somehow being judged, and there'll be people who want to shy away from that. They're scared of that being a possibility of being true, which is an influence on their rational thinking. So I think there's loads of aspects, loads of complexities and levels to this in regards to different individuals. you know, that we have to consider. That's why I'm so careful, as you say, not to close myself off and you know, presuppose or adopt a presupposition or assumption, you know, because I think it's dangerous. I then limit myself to a wider depth of understanding as soon as I do that in myself, you know. So
yeah.
So who knows? But you know, in regards to the animal thing, I think as a child, I remember an instance of watching an old cine reel of my father and other family members slaughtering a pig, you know, throwing it in the boiling water while it was alive and it's squealing. And well, I couldn't hear it squealing, I could just see the body actions of the pig, and I was absolutely horrified and traumatized by that. So, you know, again, it's probably like an MK Ultra type thing where you're traumatized by that, but you block it out. You desensitize yourself to your natural being, and you just follow a line of, you know, follow the herd, and you get your wee pre-packaged hamburgers. They taste good. You know, you adapt to it. You forget. You're not contemplating it. You've got other issues in your mind, different distractions. It doesn't seem relevant. Because it's out of sight, out of mind. You know, the whole process of how we treat animals and how that production line goes is something that's kept behind closed doors. So we're not openly exposed to it for it to be a prominent question in our minds, you know. But again, I see it with my children. I give them the options. I don't try and influence them or sway them. I just lay the facts out, give them the facts.
Why do you try and influence them?
Because it's up to them. You know, I'm strong, and you know, if I just lay out the facts, this is what that is. This is the process. Let them naturally formulate their, you know, desire or want for it, and that may change and adapt as they get older. But the only thing I can do is to lay it out in an honest fashion for them and let them make their own choices. You know. And right now, I see.
That is influencing them, you know, laying things out in laying the facts out to somebody is a kind of influence that not every child has. Not every child does have facts laid out to them.
No. Well,
you know, they just get hit with something, you know. Don't do that, ban. Not like, you know. But I do think, you know, if everything's the same, like, so why you know, you tell your kid don't go kick someone's head in. Don't go and stamp on his head.
Yeah.
Why not? Well, this and this. Would you like blah blah blah? And I think it's the same with the animals. You've got to, in a way, you do have to influence causing what you think is a moral, is you know, morally right or wrong. But
well, it's an influence, but it's not a biased influence. That's what I mean. I always try and, you know, the influences are objective, you know, and free from bias, where it's up to them to formulate their own opinions, understandings, experience. And then they can go forward from that. I think that's the only thing I can offer them, to be honest with you. You know, and I'm very careful again with the kids that I'm not, you know, offering an influence that comes from a bias. I try and you know, think of myself as not being biased to any particular method or idea.
And if someone could present you a philosophical argument why it is okay for you to eat dead animals, and you accept that, I mean, I would. It sounds weird saying it because it's difficult to envisage. But if somebody could critically show me why my argument was wrong, then I would eat animals.
Yeah. Well, again, I wouldn't even.
Maybe I wouldn't.
Maybe
it's not an ethical thing. Maybe it's something that goes beyond.
I think it's personal. I think for me, it's personal. I wouldn't even lend myself to somebody influencing me by their philosophy or an argument. I always go by my.
It's not their philosophy or their argument.
No.
If somebody can identify presupposition in your thinking that led you to think you shouldn't eat animals, and you're like, oh yes, that was a presupposition.
Well, the only way I'm going to find that out is through direct experience again. So how does my body react? You know, is it detrimental to my physical being if I don't eat them, or is there any benefits? Is there any, you know, everybody's different. I mean, you know, I know people who have allergies to certain things and they have a very limited scope of diet where they have to pursue those avenues of eating meats and these types of things. So again, it comes down to individualism, you know, people, you know, finding things out for themselves. If they've got an internal empathy, ethical question or concern that they want to appease or fulfill, then pursue that avenue, see how it affects you physiologically, and and mentally, emotionally, what the benefits, what are the pros and cons. I think it all comes down to personal experience and personal preference in regards to these things,
I just think it does, because I think it's something that you can rationally demonstrate. Like, you could say to somebody, why is it okay to eat a cow but not eat your dog?
Well, I agree.
It's not to give you rational. Explain to me rationally why it's okay to eat a cow and not a dog.
It's not. It's irrational. It's the behaviours of people are totally irrational and hypocritical. They're just using that point.
It's not really an individual decision. I mean, everything's an individual decision. It's an individual decision if you want to go out and raise people, but it doesn't mean that you can support it philosophically.
Yeah, but then
but
then we're entering into the grounds of right and wrong, and then again that comes back to, well, where actually are we? What are the objective rules?
I think it's right that the Earth's not a globe.
Yeah.
And it's objectively right that the Earth's not a globe.
Yeah.
It's objectively right that you shouldn't be going out raping people, even if you feel like you need to from a personal perspective.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Aye, I mean, I
think it could be a rational, objective claim, not just a personal ethics claim.
Mm-hmm.
That you shouldn't be eating animals.
Well, what about the people?
Unless you need to.
So how do we then deal? How do we then deal with people who take joy out of torturing and killing animals and eating them? What have we got to say to them then? See, this is what I'm saying about when things flip into subjective, and differences.
I agree, it's not a subjective thing. It's not a subjective thing. You say to them that the value of that sentient being overrides what pleasure you derive from torturing it. The value that sentient being's will to live is more important than your will to derive pleasure from torturing it.
Mm-hmm. But if we're dealing with a mind that doesn't understand that's maybe psychopathic.
That's just you can't. You could just say the same about talking about the globe. I mean, some people might just say, no, it's what my mum told me, and my mum's never wrong, or something like that, and then you just can't win.
Well, this is what I'm saying. It comes into this question again. We know that there's psychopathic people who lack empathy and ethics and remorse and these types of things. So how do they fit into this idea of what's right and wrong? That's just where I think there's a grey area for me that I'm not settled on, because there's still some things I need to understand. It's I still struggle with the question of psychopathy being nurtured or nature. This is where it comes down to, because we have these minds that display these behaviours. So how do they then fit into some of the statements that have just been made? Like saying it is wrong, and pointing out that that's a sentient being and it feels and it suffers, where I'm dealing with a mind who has no concept of that and has no relation to that whatsoever. There's a grey area there. There's something that has to be understood, as far as I'm concerned anyway. For me, from my stance, I agree with what you're saying. From that rational, empathetic, emotional type place, I totally agree with what you're saying, and I can pursue those avenues, but I still have to accept that there are minds who don't fit that criteria. So what are we dealing with then?
But when you say there's minds that don't fit that criteria, there's minds that just can't, that for whatever reason aren't able to accept that we don't live on a globe.
Yeah, but
their position is not justified just from the
no, but we're mixing.
They don't have a justified position.
But we're mixing, social science with natural science here. Science in regards to objective substances, and then social science about ethics and morals and emotions. So that's what I'm trying to separate again here.
I agree.
So.
So I see the separation in that regard.
Yeah.
But then it's very difficult for them to hold a rational position if they adopt any sort of ethics. So if they say it's ethically wrong to kill another sentient being because that sentient being is a human, then you can engage in a rational argument with them.
Yeah.
If like you were saying earlier, that the primordial thing is the will, and because they're psychopathic, their main guide is their will. What can I do? I will do anything that I will, provided I can get away with it. Then you can't deal with that. But as soon as somebody genuinely holds a position of X or Y is ethical or unethical, then you can start to engage in rationing.
Exactly.
I think that once somebody does say that, though, once somebody does say, my dog and eat my dog, but I'm happy with eating a cow, then I think you can enter the realms of objective arguments.
Yeah, I totally agree.
But most people, I would say, most people are of that ilk and are able to formulate some sort of ethics that they think is built in, that has a rational basis.
Yeah.
Most people are, and I think you can remove psychopathy from the equation because that can blur any sort of discussion you have.
Yeah.
Because there are psychopaths and so forth, but you can't engage with that. But once they do adopt a position, you can rationally tease out why they hold that position. So okay, so your dog's more important. Okay, what's the presupposition that you've reached that? You've had to decide that your dog's more important than the cow. Oh, well, we've always had dogs. Okay, so that presupposition there is that because we've always had dogs since we, what's the word called? Since we sort of domesticated them. So because something was always done, that means it's right. So there's your presupposition. No, I'm not saying that. Okay, so what are you saying? Well, I'm saying that different cultures is different things. Okay, so you're not outraged by dogs being killed in China then? Yes, I am outraged by dogs being killed. But you've just said that different cultures, you've had a presupposition that different cultures determine what we think is right and wrong. No,
exactly.
so you can, once somebody adopts a position, you can go along and challenge their presupposition.
Of course. Totally agree, mate. You know, and as you say, you find that it's just full of hypocrisy, and it's not about owning anything solid and rational and logical. It's just, you know, selective bias, you know, to perpetuate ignorance and laziness, intellectual laziness. So I totally agree with you, mate. You know, totally agree with you.
So. I was going to ask you, Dominic, and a completely separate question. And this is pure speculation again, and you can't. I mean, I'm just asking you for a speculative answer. How far do you think whoever's aware of this lie and trying to conceal it, how far do you think they would go in concealing it? Because you talk about getting, you know, the idea of activism is to get as many people.
Well, it'll only go as far as you know, as long as people are in ignorance and unaware. You know, and I don't think there's any limits to how far it could get as long as people are in ignorance and apathy and passiveness. You know.
What lengths do you think the powers that be would go to if they saw that it would look like there was being a tipping point of some kind where people were watching reality TV and were thinking and stuff like that?
Well, who knows? On a personal level, when you come across manipulative liars and you start to stand up to that bullying type behaviour, some of them can sometimes take a tantrum and maybe lash out a wee bit, and then they'll just plod on and go away and hide in the undergrowth until they find their next victim, you know. Or, you know, they'll continue to put up a fight, but, you know, I highly doubt it. I think they're a minority, to be honest with you. So I really don't know, mate. I really don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. Because I don't know what we're dealing with. Are we just dealing with humans as we know them, and it's just purely human behaviour? Is there some other, you know, life form that we're not aware of? I mean, I just don't know, mate. I just don't know. Exactly, mate. I don't know. We just
have to be open to the possibility.
But if we're dealing with just people and the psychology of people and what I've learned, you know, manipulators and liars and bullies will only go as far as you allow them to go, until you stand up and kick them in the fucking stones and tell them you're not playing the game anymore, you know. And they, as I say, they'll either take a tantrum or they'll just shy away from the confrontation and go and hide.
Yeah.
You know. So, but that's from a human, you know, social interaction position, you know. But as again, I don't know how far this reaches, what's out there, what if there is other life, you know, what they're about. It's all, you know, grey area.
That's where a lot of the speculation falls down as well, about all this sort of Illuminati stuff that people say, and I mean, that's just full of assumption again. I mean, there's the obvious question of, if they're ruling the show and keeping us in this shithole, why are they still in the shithole themselves?
Yeah.
Why aren't they somewhere else?
Exactly.
There's obvious questions like that. Another thing. Did you ever hear of something called Beyond the Pines?
Beyond the what? Sorry.
Pines, as in the pine trees.
No.
I always wondered about the origin of the channel name Beyond the Imaginary Curve.
Yeah.
And I saw this, you know, because if you ever want to know the truth about anything, you go to Hollywood. If you don't want to know the lies, you go to Hollywood. And there was this TV program, and it was The Pines or Beyond the Pines. I think Beyond the Pines was the name of this sort of show that ran alongside it. Interesting because they were playing with the idea of, okay, people are becoming aware of this is not where we're not where we think we are.
Yeah.
Different personalities reacting to that in different ways, and then are the people who are controlling this information and know where we are they benevolent or malevolent?
Yeah.
And then they played with the ideas that there's an element of benevolence, and then there's an element of and it was interesting because obviously the name as well was Beyond the, and there was somebody who refused to accept the situation.
Yeah.
And was always striving to find something else, and when he found something else, it wasn't what he thought, and then yeah.
No, I've never heard of it. As I say, I don't watch TV, mate. A few other people have said. I think Magumba, he keeps going on about a TV show. Is it Westworld? I think. I don't quote me on that, but I think, and he said there's parallels in that way. You know, some of my experience and some of the things I've spoke about as well. I've never had the chance to watch it, but I think it's along the same lines as, you know, a game's being played on people. They don't, you know, it's no what the world or the place they're in is not what they thought it was, and they're starting to realise it. I think, don't quote me 100%, but I'm pretty sure that's what he was talking about, and there seems to be parallels there. But I've never heard of Beyond the Pines, or I've never seen these things, or Westworld. So I think it's intriguing to me that these things are out there. Then they've never influenced me because I've never watched them. So it's funny. It's funny. I'll need to maybe check some of these things out. So Beyond the Pines and Westworld, I'm going to have a wee look and see what they're about. But yeah.
Cool.
So,
I'm not saying it's a good show, by the way. Just the idea that they were playing with the program.
Yeah. Well,
I'll bet it off then. Let's speak to someone else.
Cheers, bud. It was appreciated. It was great chatting to you. Hopefully we can hook up. Even
how do I come on to that? What you were saying about
you need to contact me if you install Google Hangouts on whatever device you're using, and then
I've got that. Yeah.
Well,
I put that on after we spoke last time.
You need to contact me on that. You get me through either just typing Beyond the Imaginary Curve or my email address. And
still no curve at GMX.
No. That was the open platform hangout. I'm going to have to get another email for that.
Right. That's what I sent to you last week.
Right. Okay.
Trying to get on it.
I don't have access to that, so I've not seen that. You need to just contact me direct on the Hangouts. So I think if you just type in Beyond the Imaginary Curve into the Google, it will come up. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
All right, bud. If failing that, you can just phone me back up and I'll try and arrange something else.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Nice one.
Right, nice one. Yeah. Cheers.
Appreciate it. Take it easy, buddy. Cheers, man.
Yeah. Bye.
Right, some messages came through here. Hi Dale, Paul Jones, North Wales again. I can never comment live on YouTube, only later on replay. Any IT help in this matter? Absolutely no idea, mate. Honestly, if you could see what I have to see from my perspective, I can go to places in YouTube, I can see replies under people's comments, and then I click it and I can't see anything. I can see people chatting in a comments thread that I'm in to people that I can't see. You know, people are not seeing my comments. There's loads of stuff going on that I have absolutely no answers for, because I'm a retard when it comes to tech like this, to be honest with you. So I'm in the dark. Right. So I'll stick my jumper on. A wee bit chilly in here. So anybody else got any points they want to make through the chat box, let me know right now. They'll talk about sequitur if you can. I've said everything I had to say about sequitur. Anybody who's posting things as a debate, you know there's an issue. I used sequitur because I knew they would display certain behaviours that I thought would be useful to highlight and point out. That's as far as it goes. They're sophists, they're liars, they're protecting a religious narrative, and that's it. They're not intellectually honest, they're dishonest. Pieces of shit, right? They're not interested in honest, rational discussion and representing things from an honest point of view. That's it about sequitur. End of fucking story. It's not a debate. Don't get drawn into these debates. You're not going to achieve anything with a debate. Anybody who titles it as debate, alarm bells should be ringing. That's all I've got to say about them. Right. Guy from Holland, John Doe. Right, no bother, mate. I'll get you on the next time because I'm going to be finishing up shortly. I'm just going to take this call. Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Hello?
Hello, is that Dell?
Yeah, speaking.
Hello, Dell. It's Billy Z. How are you?
I'm good, mate. Sorry, what did you say your name was, yeah?
My name is Billy Z. You've probably seen me on your channel.
Oh, Billy Zig. Aye. Aye, how you doing, bud? You alright?
I'm very well, thank you, sir. I'm calling from Australia. You've probably seen me on your channel a number of times.
Somebody told me Australia doesn't exist, so how can you be calling me for Australia?
Yeah, no, I'm not here. I'm not here. I'm just in like, as you know, they say it's probably gravity that's making us non-existent.
Ah, you must be.
Is it refraction?
You must be in some other.
Is it refraction?
Some other dimension. You know, according to some people, Australia just doesn't exist. So you're an alien.
It made me so angry that the mainstream media will if you type flat Earth into Google and then go to Google News,
yeah.
they always put those type of stupid, ridiculous topics. But no, they will never talk about is water level over vast distances.
Yep.
They will never say that. They will never question any type of real topic of discussion that they would love to ridicule. You know, is the Earth floating on a turtle?
Mm-hmm.
You know, is it this and that? You know, the ridiculous thing is that they don't do the research. And Del, thank you. I've been trying to get through to you, and so great to hear your voice.
Nice one, bud. Appreciate you phoning.
Oh, thank you. And you know, I hear some of the calls you get, and you know, I hear the trolls and I hear the shills, and you know, we've been talking. You know, you guys have been. I didn't even know what those words were, to be honest, mate, 5 years ago. You know, who did? Was it normal vocabulary that we all heard about at school? Hey, look out for trolls and shills. No, this is new, and this is new way of their conspiracy. You know, we all know that the CIA coined the term conspiracy theory, and you know, these new words they've come out with are just, you know, they love them. I was actually, can I tell you a cool story?
Go for it.
Oh, thank you. Oh, so I love to drink beer. Who doesn't? I was actually at the pub tonight. I've had several beers tonight, so excuse me if I'm anyone listening that, you know, don't judge me on my vocab right now. But, you know, I was talking to a guy and, you know, he was saying, oh, the best way to plant truth is with a little seed. And I sort of thought, okay, well, this guy seemed pretty cool, and I started chatting. I thought, that's cool, because I'm going to plant a seed with you. So I said, look at this glass of beer that we have. Is that level? He said, oh, yeah, it is. And I said, what would happen if I filled a bit above the glass? What's that doing? And he said, oh, you know, I don't know. But he claimed to be a scientist. He wouldn't tell me what he was.
Yeah.
But sorry if I'm just going on and on. But anyway, by the end of it, mate, you know what? Even if they are scientists, they don't actually know anything.
No.
They've never studied the curvature of the Earth.
No.
They've never thought about water over vast distances.
No.
You know, and this is what breaks them apart when they get into their discussion.
Yeah.
And I don't want to keep going, you know, but the last thing I'm going to say is, you know what I love about what's happening now, and I've heard a lot of
mathematicians, scientists, engineers, pilots, captains of the sea. And you know what they're all doing? They're going, hey, I love these questions. I haven't been thinking for a lot of years. I haven't thought of this in school. And I'm 48 years old, and I've been researching flat Earth for 3 years.
Yeah.
I tried to vigorously, and I mean, mate, I gave up. I run, businesses. I actually stopped what I was doing for 6 months to research and try to debunk flat Earth because I thought it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
But now I'm a flat earther. You gotta be. You can't be living in Australia thinking you're spinning upside down on a freaking spinning ball. And they say that Australia doesn't exist. Give me a break, right? Give me a freaking break. As Russian Biz says, I didn't coin that. Russian Biz is my favorite. I saw him online before. He is the fact. And it's all of you guys and you, mate. You don't let them ever bring you down. Because when you talk to the scientists, ask them about perihelion and aphelion. Because everyone says the sun is 93 or 92.66 or 69 million miles away. Turn some of those 92 points, some of those sixes or nines upside down, and you're going to get 666 there as well. But we're not at a constant. And everyone says, oh, why can't you feel? You can't feel the Earth spinning because we're at a constant movement. No, you're not. You're going through perihelion and aphelion, which means we're in an elliptical shape, like a football,
Speaking
like an Australian AFL. Yeah? And when you counter that into the argument, and you bring in centrifugal force and centripetal force, and real things that we know, hey, it breaks down their argument. And that's, guys, if I'm the last thing to say, let's talk about that. And I've done some real experiments. I live in Melbourne, Australia. I can go to Port Phillip Bay. I live 700 metres away from the beach, so I go every day.
Yeah.
And I sometimes can see 30 kilometres away. I'm talking Melbourne to Geelong. Anyone wants to look that up online? And other times you can't see anything because the atmosphere's got so much conditions happening there.
Yeah.
Right now it's different down in Melbourne.
That's it.
But can you actually go? Would you go and see 30? No, you can't. But so I've literally measured distances beyond not only what these 5-mile experiments. It's nothing to me in Melbourne. I'm seeing 30.
Yeah. Exactly, mate.
Keep up the great work, my friend.
Cheers, bud. Thanks for phoning, man.
Just hang in and then don't let those trolls, don't let them get you because I deal with it every day. Can I tell you I'm a moderator of a group? Do you mind me plugging it? Not plugging it, just telling you what I do?
Yeah, well, you see what you like, mate.
Thank you, man. I'm a moderator of several, a few groups on Facebook. One of them is the official Flat Earth and Globe Earth discussion group run by Nathan Thompson. I'm a moderator there. I've been, early days, 4,000 people. It's at 110,000 people.
Yeah.
You get the trolls. I've dealt with all levels of trolls you don't believe. I'm also a moderator of the Future of Flat Earth group.
Mm-hmm.
That's got something like 11 or 12,000 people now. So I've dealt with the biggest. And you know what? They've got nothing.
That's it, mate.
Do you agree? Do you agree?
Yep, they've got fuck all, mate. Absolutely nothing.
They got absolutely nothing.
Yep.
It actually shocked me because I tried to debunk Flat Earth. As I said, the big spunk. Anyone that keeps.
There is no flat Earth to debunk. It's debunking the globe, and that leaves you with
debunking the globe.
Yeah, well,
right.
that leaves you with a stance of knowing that the Earth's level, but the full dimensions we don't know. So there's no flat Earth. There is no flat Earth model to debunk. It's only straw man plastic nonsense. So
I love it. That's so perfect, Bill. That's so good because you're right. Because when you really let your confirmation bias, when you let go of that, and you start going, hang on a sec, let me forget about debunking Flat Earth. Let me try and debunk the heliocentric model.
Exactly.
And within days, you're going to hear guys like Lawrence Krauss and Michio Kaku and Neil deGrasse, like that guy, and Bill Nye and all those, let's not talk about Brian. Brian's got nothing. It's just everyone looks up to these guys, the scientists, and it's preposterous.
Yep.
Absolutely preposterous. I'm going to let you go because I don't want to hog your line here.
That's all right,
so many better things to do. But man, Australia freaking exists. I'm here, standing here, and I've got some beers in front of me, and they're level in my glass. Yeah.
Good man.
Cultural Bay's level, and I'm talking, man, when you go to, if you ever come to Australia, Del, come, I'll show you what we can see. Look at some of my experiments, like what I've done on with a dome on my table, right?
Yep.
And have you seen some of the latest? Have you seen that latest CIA document, Del, where it's like a 100-page document where they talk about the firmament, like. I don't know, man. I don't even believe in this. I don't know what to believe, but
no, I'll check.
I've never seen that shit.
I'll check some of your stuff out, bud.
Oh man, just that one thing, I'll blow you away. I recreated the moon. I'll replicate the moon in a glass dome. Not by replicate. I don't know. I'm not claiming anything, but if you look at it, I know shit. That's what I said in my video, and I've done a few of them. And I can even say that the moon phases, I've been watching them for years, the flat earther, and they don't match, they don't marry, the moon phases cannot be a constant for everyone all night, every night.
No.
It can't be.
No.
You can't retain a constant state, or you can't, right? And look at my video on that.
I will do.
Years ago. I
Nice one. I'll definitely.
Would you agree? Like, can you tell? Would you say, I'm being silly to say, that a light can hold a constant, even though our angular position, everyone's
no, it should change. It should be changing constantly, mate. It should be changing constantly. Well, I've made this point before. If the sun sets for me, 3 years ago, and then I look to the east and the moon arrives on my horizon in a phase. It doesn't take a genius to work out that the line of sight for the sun to the moon is blocked, and it shouldn't be in that phase. So it's it's simplistic. It should change. It's at the same phase from when I go to my bed to get up in the morning. It's still in my sky, and there's
How can it be?
No, exactly.
How can it be, Del?
Exactly.
How can it be? And I'm in Australia, and I'm seeing that same phase.
Yeah.
And you are inverted, because we all know that the inverted position. Watch my dome experiment as well. It'll show you what it's doing.
Cool.
You know what? And I reckon, and you know what I reckon, Del? And everyone's been saying this, but my numbers even on YouTube, man, I know I'm sharing shit, and it still stays at 400.
Yeah.
Before it was at 420.
Yeah.
And I don't mind the number 420, to be honest. So let it sit there,
Well, nice one. If you do me a favour, mate, and just stick a wee comment in the chat, and then I can click directly to your channel, and then everybody else that's there. All right, but just put a comment.
I could go on. I wrote some things down, but I'm not going to hog your chat, man.
Aye. Next time, bud.
I would love to spend 3 hours on the phone with you. I'll freaking blow you away. I was a bit of a closet flat earther. You know what I mean? I've given up on that.
Yeah.
Really? If anyone wants to be a closet flat earther and sit on the fence, why don't you just sit on? You know what happens to men that sit on the fence? Your balls are going to be broken, right? Anyone wants broken balls? Sit on the freaking fence as long as you want, mate. But I'm not going to do that shit. I'm going to jump on one side and make a decision like a man. Or a human, or a thing. I don't want to say a man, or just think and make your mind up, everyone.
That's it, mate. That's it.
Stop sitting on a fence and just break your balls.
Exactly, bud. Well,
good night, Del, man. It took me a while to channel through to you because I had a few beers. And double one, yep, dude. Yeah.
Cool, bud. Cheers for phoning. All right, mate.
I love you, man. You're a legend. You're a legend. Love you.
Cheers, buddy.
Good on you, Del.
Take it easy.
Man. Good night, and good night to everyone.
Cheers, bud.
Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.
Right. Well, cheers, people. Cheers for everybody that phoned in, contributed in the chat, and people watching. I'll see you very, very soon. Take it easy.